Defense has been good so far. Here's Hunter Decker, the lefty, rolling to that side, throwing it, picked off by the Frogs at the 35-30, inside the 20, inside the 10. It's Bradford inside the 5. Touchdown, TCU!
Welcome to Sikkim 365 Radio.
Throwing to the end zone. Touchdown! Alec Holler with an incredible one-handed grab.
Sikkim 365 Radio is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Patchen with time, unloads over the middle, and it's intercepted! K.D. Davis, how fitting!
Sikkim 365 Radio is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
This time he stays alive, looking long, he's wide open. Wow. No one is there. Sammy Wheeler, touchdown, K-State.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports.
Smoak, Paul Catalina to my left, Craig Smoak to my right. I don't know what the heck's going on, but how about this news? Let's put up the tweet right off the top. Kyron Drones, quarterback at Baylor, Shadow Creek High School, has entered the transfer portal. Not a surprise. Wish he would have come back for the spring, but it's his job, it's his career, it's his decision.
He does mention at the end that coming back to Baylor is a possibility. I would say that's probably light. That doesn't happen too often, although K.D. Davis, the guest we're going to have from North Texas, entered the transfer portal and got out of it. So it's not unprecedented. I can see it both ways where, look, you're a quarterback, NIL's a thing now. You got to maximize, earning potential and starting, and it's hard to probably get that big money when you're the backup and you don't know when your time is. But also, I do think that he would be given more of an opportunity than a normal year coming back with a returning starter, just based on how the year ended for Baylor offensively.
Yeah, I don't think this is much of a surprise at all. I mean, some folks have been speaking this into existence for like a year and a half already, and threatening like, well, if you don't name him the starter, he's going to – I mean, I know that's the case pretty much at every, quarterback room across the country. I mean, look, Hudson Card just jumped in the portal, and he played way more this past year than Kyron Drones played, right? I mean, and he's got probably more of a hill to climb than Kyron Drones does. So, Hudson Card's going to cash in and get himself a surefire starting job. I don't blame Kyron Drones if he feels that that's what he needs to do as well. I'm curious as to what level, because a lot of people said the same things they're saying about Kyron Drones about Jacob Zeno, and Jacob Zeno's at UAB. So like all due respect, that's a good program, and he'll probably do really well there ultimately. That is a step down. So if Kyron's just looking to play, or if he's got, people wanting to offer him whatever, because we know that's going on as well, then you certainly understand him opening up and exploring his options. But I do think the timing of it, there is no surefire thing that Blake Shapen's a starter next year unless this staff's completely lost its freaking mind. Not after what we've seen this year. I have nothing against Blake Shapen, but, they went 6-6. They lost a bunch of games they shouldn't have lost. They lost probably 2 or 3 games that, better quarterback play or just a more timely decision-making stint by the quarterback, and they don't lose those games. So it's a weird deal, this Baylor quarterback room, where you went from Charlie Brewer, who was just like your guy for forever and ever, and by the end of it, fans were just so ready for a change. And then eventually he transfers out, and Gary Bohannon gets the job, and then Gary gets hurt, and then Shapen comes in and saves the day. And, Gary was really good for them last year, but let's not act like Blake didn't come in and win, like, really important games. Gary wasn't the reason they won the Sugar Bowl. Gary wasn't the reason they won the Big 12 title. Gary wasn't the reason they won the final regular season game to get to the Big 12 championship. And he wasn't the reason they beat Kansas State the week before, because he went out at halftime. So those last 3.5 games all those titles, that wasn't because of him. Now, the journey to get there, he had a lot to do with that. But, they got to figure it out on offense, what they want to be, what they want to do, and what the future is going to look like. Because, you look up and you have this revolving door of transfers, and I know you can't prevent all of that, but you're going to end up in a situation where, you just don't have real firepower. So very curious how they tread this line. Very curious, what Drones gets as far as attention and perhaps offers and things like that. And, yeah, maybe there is a chance he comes back. I think if I'm Baylor, I'm selling him on the fact that, yeah, this is going to be a wide-open competition in the spring, truly. We know you didn't win the last one, but this will be there for the taking. You just have to go and take it. Whether that's enough or not, who knows, but not surprised that he's at least entering his name in the portal.
Garrett, by the way, I just sent you a tweet that we'll do the next one. It'll be the next one we get to because it also is part of the news today in college football. Thanks to those of you already on the 365 Sports chat room. Yes, we will discuss the destruction in Milwaukee at Marquette last night when they humiliated Baylor's men's basketball team almost from the jump. We'll get to that and what went wrong and what can possibly be fixed. One other note in college football, this one here, and there's another one that infects the Big 12. The Ren Baker, I'll do this one first, Garrett. Ren Baker, who's been at North Texas, is now going to be the AD at West Virginia, replacing Lyons, who left about, a week or so ago, who's now an assistant on staff at Alabama. Ren Baker is a Mack Rhodes disciple. Look for Jared Mosley, who's worked in Waco at the Texas Sports Hall of Fame, as probably someone who could be the leading candidate to be promoted within the North Texas system, and or at least you would think absolutely someone they'll talk to about replacing Ren Baker.
Yeah.
Why would they need to replace him?
Well, he said it. He's the West Virginia AD. Yeah, he's the West Virginia AD. Yeah, Ren Baker is, I think, a great hire for West Virginia. He navigated the conference switch over for them very, very well. North Texas, for a Group of 5 school, has some of the best facilities that you're going to see. They've really done well up there in all sports. And, Ross Dellinger, by the way, reporting that the feeling around Morgantown is that he'll keep Neil Brown for a year, at least. That's for 2023. Neil Brown will be safe. And that kind of does make sense given the timing of all this.
Right.
Because, you've got to get your head coach hire right. But if you're at the end of the cycle, which we're almost at the end of the cycle right now for the first wave of things, and transfer portals 4 or 5 days from now, signing days a couple weeks from now, are you going to be able to get that done in a couple of days after letting him go, interviewing candidates, and getting your coach?
Well, that's normally the case. You have a new AD coming in, so you probably worry about possible changes. But I would think he would want, unless he was told, you could have this job, but you have to fire Neil Brown. And I would think that Ren Baker, and, again, remember how patient he was with North Texas and Seth Luttrell. And here they are in the Conference USA Championship game this week. And speaking of that, Katie Davis, All-American candidate linebacker, will join us here at the bottom of the hour. Now, here's also the story in college football, UAB, with Trent Dilfer, the former NFL quarterback, has been named their head coach. He has been coaching at a high school and has blue chip type, at least some college prospects that he's cultivated with that program. This came down pretty late yesterday evening. He now is kind of out of a nowhere and outside the box hire is headed to UAB.
Yeah, I wonder how this works out. Look, nobody knows more about film and breaking it down and, X and O than Trent Dilfer. And nobody also knows the value of just being the guy they need you to be than Trent Dilfer, who has a Super Bowl ring, for being just the guy they need you to be and getting out of the way. So, yeah, I'm curious to see how this happens. I think it's kind of a big jump to go from high school to UAB, which is a good program, but, we'll see, how that works out.
Going back to North Texas, I think that that's a big hire for West Virginia. I think Ren Baker's a really good AD and did a good job in Denton, and I was surprised to see his name flash across their graphic. I didn't know the ties there or, the thought process there. Obviously, was kind of in the dark on the direction West Virginia was going to go. So when I saw that it was Ren Baker, I thought, wow, it's a nice splash for the Mountaineers. You don't think he's bringing Seth Luttrell with him, so there's no automatic oh, he's bringing this guy and this guy would make sense. I know Ren's kind of an OU guy. He's got background there, background obviously in DFW. So it'll be interesting to see who his, when he does inevitably have to go make that move at some point next year or whenever it is, what his list of folks looks like. But I bet it'll be pretty solid given where he's been during his career. So if I'm a Mountaineer fan, I don't know how I feel about the Neil Brown situation, but I think you had to sort of resign yourself that he wasn't going anywhere this year. Like, I think we've kind of established that, and the continuous harping on it, I think, was just more of like you wanting it to happen, but just logistically it hasn't made sense for it to happen. So, next year, then pound the table if it's the same result, but I think you're going to have to wait a little while on that. Outside of that, I think you love everything else that's going on as far as Ren Baker being the new AD. As far as, what was that other story?
Trent Dilfer.
Yeah, Trent Dilfer. I don't know. I'm seeing a lot of mixed reaction. I don't know what to think about the hire. I mean, do I like the hire because I know who Trent Dilfer is? Or do I like the hire because I think he's a really good coach who will do well at UAB? I think most people are resigning themselves to number one. Mm-hmm. I know that guy. He's on TV. He's, Trent Dilfer's takes and all that stuff. But I don't know. I know he's done well at the high school level and, very well connected and knows the game, obviously, and all the things that I guess you would look for. But on the day-to-day running a program, I don't know. I've seen a couple tweets suggesting that it's a S show over at, the university right now, as far as the way it's being ran and the decision makers. I hope that that's not the case. I hope that Trent Dilfer gets a, clean, nice opportunity and can really go show what he's all about and what he can do. And I'm sure if he does well there, then he would move up pretty quickly given his, stature. But I don't know. I've seen a couple of people are a little leery of this move because of kind of the way that it was made. So we'll see, but definitely a splash hire for sure.
Well, and here's the things. High school coaches going to college, Gus Malzahn, Art Briles. The one that did not work was Jerry Faust from, I think, Moeller High School, who went to Notre Dame. Hugh Freeze, another high school to college. That one has worked, and there's more. Andy Reid was a high school football coach at one point.
Chad Morris.
Yeah.
There you go. Absolutely.
Todd
as
Dodge
well. Yep.
did not work.
Yep. Yeah. So some work, some don't, even when they've had elite success, no matter where they have been. The Big 12 Conference, is it good to go with this, Garrett? They have just announced their end-of-the-year awards. This is for not just conference play, but for the entire season. Max Duggan is the Offensive Player of the Year. There is no, MVP. Offensive Player of the Year. Ozuma from Kansas State, Defensive Player of the Year. And there's going to be some argument here. I would think, I know Paxton, who's in the chat room, what about Jalen Ford? I bet he probably was right in the middle of all that, the linebacker who had a huge year. Newcomers are Dylan Gabriel and Johnny Hodges, who was fantastic for TCU. Gabriel was hot and cold. Richard Reese, the freshman running back at Baylor, the Offensive Freshman of the Year. And then Kendall Daniels from Oklahoma State, the safety, is the Defensive Freshman of the Year, different than newcomer because of the transfers now that you see. Darius Davis, special teams. Cooper Beebe at Kansas State, lineman. Also on the other side, Kansas State, he doubles up. Defensive Player and Defensive Lineman of the Year. And then Sonny Dykes, no surprise, is TCU, the first-year head coach at TCU, as the Coach of the Year.
And TCU loads up the first team, as far as the actual lineup goes of the first team. The second team has an interesting double play here in that Dylan Doyle is the second-team fullback, and he's also on the second team as a linebacker.
Is he really? Yeah, well, I mean, there aren't many fullbacks, I would think. There's probably not many that I can think of in the Big 12.
The first team one was Ben Sinnott from
Kansas State, who was big, huge in that route of Baylor at McLean Stadium.
Does that list as a pure fullback?
Yeah.
Okay, that needs to be changed, man. That needs to be like a utility role because there's just not enough. I mean, that's kind of silly to have an award where maybe like three teams qualify for it, and one guy's a defensive player who comes over on occasion to.
That's why he probably made second team. Yeah.
Well, yeah, because there's only probably two guys to pick from.
Well, three. Jared Russ from Iowa State also on the second team, but yeah.
Yeah, but you see my point though. There's all these different utility guys that are being used, especially in this league. I just think that'd probably be more worthwhile. But hey, to each their own. Good for Dylan Doyle to double up there. I think I don't know if Gary can put it back up there, but just looking at that list, I think the Jalen Ford as not being the Defensive Player of the Year is a bit of a surprise, given the way, he played and how that Longhorn defense got, particularly a little bit overlooked. Off the top of my head, really the defensive player of the year is the only one that immediately springs to mind for me. Very happy for Richard Reese. Had a great little 3-game stretch and then kind of cooled after that a bit. But he was still very solid and still ran for a lot of yards for just a true freshman that was, called into action due to injury and just necessity. And the rest of it, no surprise to see the two teams that are going to be representing in the Big 12 title game have a chunk of the guys who are, considered the better players in the league this year. So, yeah, lots of K-State, lots of TCU, and that's not that shocking. I wonder how much discussion there was. I mean, Sonny Dykes being undefeated in year one, you can't argue that. But
Leipold, right?
Leipold would have been, I'm sure certainly up for some consideration. I think Kleiman would have to be up for some consideration, but certainly, Dykes is undefeated, so I get that totally.
And then TCU, again, Duggan, if there's like an MVP, you would think he might get that. Then if you opened up the door for an offensive player, then Bijan Robinson or Kendry Miller would be a part of that discussion. Not everybody agrees with them. There's a first team and second team, as Paul mentioned. We're not going to get into all that, but congratulations to those who have been honored. And then last night, the college football standings released with 1 week left. They'll release the last one on Sunday. The top 25, numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4. The only change, USC now is number 4. They move in. Ohio State drops from, 2 to 5. And TCU up another notch at number 3. And it looks like to me this is a 5-team race, barring something crazy, between Georgia, Michigan, TCU, and USC. Ohio State needs a loss in front of them, and even then you don't know if that would be enough, depending on who it would be. And Alabama would need, they're on fumes because of the 2 losses, no matter how, because Ohio State would have 1 loss to a team that you think will end up winning the Big Ten title in their game against Purdue, but you never know. We've seen conference championship games screw up the national championship picture before.
Yeah, and, it is, and we don't know it's going to happen, but, Georgia, is, going to be heavily favored to beat LSU, especially if Jane Daniels doesn't play or is limited in that game with the injury. Michigan is going to be very heavily favored over Purdue in that game. And TCU and USC have, dogfights on their hands with teams they've already seen this year and had dogfights with. So, maybe, TCU's, toughest game was probably Baylor because they had to win at the last second. But outside of that one, Kansas State probably gave them the most trouble top to bottom, right?
Who's that?
TCU.
Yeah. No, they were up 28-10
yeah.
in that game. But again, TCU, like a snake, man, you got to cut their head off. And that's in a positive, complimentary way. And they even came back from 28-10 down.
Well, I think there were some interesting things. The Alabama-Tennessee argument, for one. Alabama being at 6, Tennessee being at 7, despite the fact Tennessee beat them. I get Tennessee lost to South Carolina. So if you want, I don't care that much to debate that, quite frankly. But that is one of those things that jumps out to you, is them being paired right next to each other, and the team in front is the team that lost to the one right behind them. That just, I don't know. I get those. South Carolina lost, what have you. I think Clemson's too high at number 9 at this point. And, I think there's a lot of this rearranging to make conference championship games look sexy is basically what you see. And I'm tired of this. I'm really tired of the playoff show. The playoff show
the last 3 weeks.
is such theater, and it's such a arranging of the deck chairs to make every game spicy. Now TCU and K-State's, 3 versus 10, and that'll look good on the board, and the graphic and whatnot, and then the way it's situated with some others as well. What was the big bugaboo out of the Pac-12?
Washington and Oregon, I think it was it not? There was something about nothing changed over the weekend involving the teams in the Pac-12 other than obviously Oregon lost, USC won, but there was something that the Corrigan mentioned among the Pac-12 teams, and yet what he was discussing was what happened 2 weeks ago and why they then positioned teams for this week. Got kind of caught, huh?
Yeah, but again, and look, Boo Corrigan has the most impossible job out there.
Could have said no.
Yeah, but they and I get it, and I'm not trying to advocate for him, but the problem is they need to address that fact that the person we send out here is going to have to answer very specific questions about scenarios to ultimately translate hey, we're splitting hairs here. I'm just trying to look for anything I can say to make it make sense. But At the end of it, we just feel this is better.
Well, there was an article yesterday that I sent to both of you, and if you haven't read it, if you're a subscriber of theathletic.com, it's an article of behind the scenes from the first year when Jeff Long was the one up in front of people, eventually Kirby Hocutt at Tech and others, and how they have, how it works and how they disagree and how they have to get in front of people, and it's not an easy job, but that doesn't excuse them for trying to pull the curtains over your eyes. So that was something. But Craig, you were talking about that. I saw some argument among Pac-12. Oregon in the latest polls, 15. Oregon 16. Oregon State's 15. Utah's 11.
No, it had to do with Utah and Washington. The fact that Washington was ahead of Utah by a spot, and now Utah's ahead of Washington. What did those two teams just do?
They both won.
Yeah, but who did they beat?
Yeah.
Washington had a really nice win. Utah beat Colorado.
Yeah.
Utah beat Colorado. Colorado is probably the one of, if not the worst.
Top 5 worst teams.
Easily. Yeah. Top 5 worst team right now in America in Division I college football. Bar none. And Washington, meanwhile, so Utah beats the pants off Colorado. Guess who hasn't beat the pants off Colorado? Everybody's beating the pants off Colorado. They suck. I mean, they do. They're awful. And so they get a bump for beating Colorado and jump Washington, who just beat Washington freaking State, who is pretty dang good. And that was a pretty dang good game till Washington kind of pulled away and created some room there in the second half. But that is an obvious example of flipping rankings and gussing it up to make it look sexy for their little TV graphics for their championship games. And I'm just tired of it, man. Like,
well,
I get
it's just one spot.
No, I understand, though, but why did you jump them a spot? You beat Colorado.
They didn't jump them a spot. That's the thing. They jumped 3 spots. Utah went up 3 spots for beating Colorado. Washington went up once, but Utah
But they jumped them.
Yep.
Yeah, they did jump them is my point. And so why did they jump them? I just, that's to me blatant. We're massaging the rankings to make it look how we want, and they'll go on TV and say whatever garbage they say. Like, I think at this point, everybody sees Boo pop up on TV, and they're like, oh, it's just the new Jeff Long or the new version of Kirby Hocutt or all these other guys that have had to come up there over the years and explain these rankings. And I feel like every time they do it, they're just rolling their eyes at the audience of like, I can't believe people are actually watching this and believing what we're saying, because it's so clear what they do when they get in that room is they set it up like they're chess pieces. And I know that's kind of part of what they do, but when they do something like that, like that's just so obvious trying to make it look better than it really is. And I don't understand the need to do that. I don't think less people are going to watch if it was the other way around. Like, I don't know. Like, it's not like they're going to be unranked, but coming off of those 2 games, to have it set up like that to where Utah's now in front for beating Colorado.
Well, here's the thing. If you wouldn't have brought up the numbers, their ranking numbers, I would never have thought about that before they played the game with USC. So I'm not paying attention to it. It's not like it's a top 5 matchup. So
But they don't think people pay attention. And they just do what they want. And even for the people who do and call them out on it, they just still go about doing what they want. But it's just so obvious. It's such a TV product, and I can't stand it, man. I love the idea of it. But every year, I just go up to the TV screen and roll my eyes when these shows come on because it's just such BS.
I didn't watch it, yeah.
Total BS.
I didn't watch it, but I know it's important, and I know if you're TCU, you wanted to make sure that you didn't get screwed because that's happened to TCU and Baylor in 2014. If you're Michigan, you didn't have to worry. If you're Georgia, you surely didn't have to worry. Now, if some things crazy happen this weekend, man, you never know what's going to happen on Sunday. If USC, TCU, Michigan, and Georgia win, they're all in. There is no way anyone jumps them. Nothing can happen. Not even the most logo or brand or country club or whatever blue blood. Nothing happens if those 4 teams win this weekend, which is not always the case. And of course, USC plays on Friday, and in their game in the Pac-12 championship against Utah. All right.
I do want to say, hey, TCU, like, we needed to pay much attention to them because of just the way they were situated. And, yeah, it does look like they could get in regardless of result. I think they should get in regardless of result so long as it's not a blowout. I think the top 4 should probably just stay the top 4 regardless of what happens in these games, unless there's, of course, blowouts. But it does beg the question of the value of conference championship games and kind of what we're walking into here in the future because – yeah, what if TCU were? I mean, if they get blown out, they don't deserve it. You know, if they're at this point, even after an undefeated regular season, but after an undefeated regular season, you feel like they should probably just be in.
Yeah.
Probably should just be in this thing. And so for all the anti-expansionists, like, that's one thing that I think is a benefit of the expanded playoff is that TCU's in no matter what. Now you'll say, well, that also means Alabama might get, okay, well, if that's the thing that you have to ensure that some of these others have those solidified opportunities, then it's never going to be perfect. I don't like the 12 number. I do think 8 would have been great, but I understand more money, more teams and all that. But I do feel like TCU going this weekend should be pretty much 99.9% solidified.
I agree
and I
with
think
you.
that they are, but I don't trust this committee, and I don't trust the Ohio State factor whatsoever. And that's kind of what some of my little rant a second ago was on. I just don't trust these folks when they're talking about their reasoning. I really don't. And they kind of talk out of both sides of their mouth at times. I understand it's a difficult job, but when you see the little massaging, that's when all my trust goes out the window. So I think TCU's in regardless, but you better play a close game at worst.
Yeah, and I do think that conference championships will make more sense when it comes to seeding for the playoffs. So, like, when you're trying to determine who are those top seeds that are getting the bye and who else, then a conference championship game carries more weight and shouldn't spoil a good season. Like, if you have a Oklahoma-Kansas State situation,
right?
It doesn't look. It means that Kansas State's going to get into the playoff because they won the Big 12, and that Oklahoma's going to not be one of the top 4 seeds because they didn't win it, but they're still in. And you don't have to go, well, the worst game they possibly had.
This seems to be the most no-brainer ever, but then again, you never know because Utah beat USC earlier in that crazy going for 2 and made it. We know Michigan, Purdue. Okay, those are the kind of games we've seen before when we've seen the Big 12 have it upset, and a couple of other conferences it's happened too. Georgia, you would think no matter what, and I agree, this seems to be 1, 2, 3, 4. If it was Georgia, Michigan, TCU, USC, and, I don't know, somebody besides the name of Ohio State and Alabama lurking right behind you, it might be something where you can breathe a little bit. Just go take care of your business. That's what TCU's done, and that doesn't mean we don't want K-State to play well and have one hell of a game at AT&T Stadium in Arlington.
No, it has nothing to do with that. It has to do with the fact that TCU should be in regardless of what happens unless they get blown out. I would say the one team that does have to play carefully is USC. I don't think that they're just automatically in no matter what. They have to win this weekend to be in the college football playoff. I don't know that that's the case with TCU, and I know that's not the case with, obviously Georgia.
All right, KD Davis in North Texas play for the Sun Belt Championship coming up this week against UTSA. Of course, we heard from Jeff Traylor earlier in the week. What is KD Davis, an All-American candidate for North Texas and plays for, of course, Seth Luttrell? His thoughts and more next on 365 Sports. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco open Monday through Sunday, and numerous classes available. Whether they are spin or cycle classes, whether it's Spinnerville, whether it's boot camp, whether it's bar, whether it's yoga, you name it, body shaping, they have it. Depends on who you want, what class you want to go to. They're open and classes every day, multiple classes from 5 o'clock in the morning, Monday through Friday, to even earlier, like 7 o'clock on Saturday and Sunday. So it's there for you. There's a guy that's there. I told you about him. He was about 265 about 3 months ago, and he's dropped maybe 20, 25 pounds. He's going to run at a 5K. Justin is his name. He used to run a lot, used to run quite a bit. Then he had a couple of children. He got a little bit out of shape, and now he's trying to get back in shape. He and his buddies want to run a 5K. I wish him the very best. I didn't see him today, though, and so we got to make sure he's doing okay. If you want personal training, you have that with Alec Botch. You have Randall Corley and Christy London to help maybe turn the corner. In fact, give them a chance. That allows you to have somebody that makes sure you're making sure you are there, whatever day it might be, even if it's on an off day. It's a beautiful tennis academy set up with Britt Coleman as well. They have adult and youth tennis. They have pickleball. They have a USTA tournament this weekend. It is always busy, energized, and more. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lake Shore Drive in Waco.
This month, Allen Samuelson Waco is having the Black Friday sales event. You can save big on the new 2022 Ram 1500 Crew Cab with total values up to $4,250 with 2.9% for 72 months. That's right, plus an extra $500 bonus cash to first responders and no payments until January 2023. Shop an award-winning dealership with award-winning product. Allen Samuelson Waco, the place to shop Ram trucks.
Come by, let's be friends. It takes time to reach goals. It's a truth that applies to more than sports. It goes for your financial goals as well. You work hard for your money, and you deserve an investment strategy that lines up with your game plan. And Chuck Verno, your Edward Jones financial advisor, can help. If financial investments aren't putting forth the effort you desire, stop by today for a financial review. Chuck Verno, 720 North 64th Street in Waco, 254-732-1161. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your home for holiday favorites for parties or time with the family, with various specials available while supplies last in store or ordering by phone, including 8 to 10 pound half spiral hams at $4.15 a pound, 12-pound pit hams at $4.35 a pound, 8 to 22 pound bone-in hams for $3.40 a pound, 14 to 16 pound whole raw turkeys at $2.85 a pound, and $4.80 a pound for 9 to 12 pound whole smoked turkeys, 6 to 8 pound mini pit hams for $5.99 a pound. Limit 4 of each item per customer. Call in advance to ensure availability or drop by Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco. Waco Custom Marketplace, your full-service butcher shop for customized orders or cuts of your favorite steaks or beef tenderloin or specially ordered prime rib roast. WacoCustomMarketplace.com. We are back on 365 Sports and joined by North Texas linebacker Katie Davis here on 365 Sports with Craig Smoak, Paul Catalina, and David Smoak. Katie, thank you very, very much. You guys get a shot at UTSA again. They got you earlier this year. You got them last year. It's turned it into a pretty good little rivalry. Your thoughts about playing for the title this week?
Man, it's a great feeling. We had lost earlier this season during the conference, but we had this chip on our shoulder and we had that taste in our mouth from the loss that we took and the feeling after the game. So, we just kept playing hard and just kept being coachable, and now we're here for the championship, man. It's just a great feeling.
KD, you had an interesting year by college athlete standards. The transfer portal and then deciding to stay where you are, that's kind of a rare decision. You got to feel good playing for a conference title and staying where you knew and you were comfortable, but can you take us through that year and the decision a little bit, because you've had a unique run?
Yes, sir. It was a pretty big decision, but at the end of the day, I feel like I made the right decision for me and my family. I had entered the portal and took a couple of visits to some great schools. I had my individual goals that I wanted. I wanted to break the tackling record, which I'm 13 tackles from the most career tackles in North Texas history. So I'm about to break that. And then my team goal is I want to lead the team, because I'm a captain. I've been a captain for like the last 3 years. I want to lead the team to a championship. And now that I've done that, it's like my dream has come true. This is like literally everything I came back for and everything I've been grinding for.
Katie, what's it like on a day-to-day, but also playing for one Phil Bennett?
Man, Coach Bennett, he's a legend. He's going to come in every day. He's going to coach hard. He always pushes us to do better. And he wants nothing but the best for us. He pretty hard on us sometimes, but we know he is only because he expects a lot out of us. He's a great coach, and man, I just love getting coached by Coach Bennett every day.
We're very close to Coach Bennett. He's been on the show many times. Before he took the North Texas job, he was like a weekly guest on our show talking college football. So we're big fans of him. He's kind of a character, just a little bit, right?
Oh yeah, cause Ben he's a little bit of a character too. Yeah.
What does he call you? Does he call you by your given name, or is he giving you a weird nickname?
So I've been having this nickname since like my junior year of high school. Everybody calls me Sark, and so he's been calling me Sark ever since he came in.
Well, he loves you too. And now, can you share the conversations you had with him, obviously with Seth Luttrell as well, when others started coming at you, whether it was Ole Miss or A&M or others? Can you kind of say how did Coach Bennett handle that when he knew that others were coming after you, and especially because of NIL?
I had already been talking about it with him like throughout the spring. And I just told him like I just wanted to go see what was out there for me. Just wanted to see what's best. I didn't want to just leave North Texas behind because you just never know. You know, you don't want to burn any bridges with anyone. And I took the visits, and I just felt like the best place and the best thing was for me to do was to come back home, and that's what I did.
So with that being said, and obviously things have changed, transfer, NIL, etc. But with that being said, when there is NIL money involved, whoever it might be, no matter the school, how much NIL discussion is there, and how much actual football discussion is there?
I'm pretty sure it's a lot of football. The main thing is honestly football. Of course, because you want to bring in great players. I just feel like the NIL stuff is just a plus, just to add on top of it. You know, everybody wants to go out and recruit the best players they can and get us to the school, but the NIL, like I said, it's just a plus. And some people are really into it, and then some aren't.
KD, I've watched that interception you made to end the game last week about 8 times. How close was that ball to the ground?
Nah, it was pretty close. And on some of the videos, it didn't look that close to the ground, but I'm telling you, it was that close. I had to go down and get it.
How do you feel like you've grown as a player throughout this season?
A lot. I have like this team is kind of young. I have a lot of young guys on the team, young players on the team that look up to me, and that just push me to go harder. I know every day, even whenever I don't feel like practicing or I have a lot going on at home or whatever, I know I gotta push it to the side because I'm leading a huge group, and it's a lot of guys that look up to me. So, man, I'm just growing as a football player and a man each and every day, and I feel a growth with me. Like I said, just being a football player and a man, I can definitely feel the growth.
KD, how much did Phil Bennett ever talk to you about guys like Taylor Young, Eddie Lackey, or even Dat Wynn? Did he bring those particular examples up to you at all?
Oh, yeah, Taylor Young for sure. Taylor Young was actually with us last year, and he helped me with a few things, taught me a lot of things, actually. And I pulled up a picture whenever he got here of me at a Baylor game. Whenever he was playing, it was crazy because I used to always watch him. I just never met him, and it was just crazy how I ended up with Coach Bennett, and then Taylor Young. He brought Taylor Young in, and it was just great.
Did he ever tell you the story about how he hit Baker Mayfield so hard? Just posterized him?
He showed me the video.
We've got a picture here in our studio, KD, of that hit with Taylor Young hitting Mayfield. That was 2017. Baylor had not won a game, and it was an onside kick they recovered late in the game to have a chance to possibly stun the world in Oklahoma. All right, so if I use these words, which of these words more defines you, or at least this is who you are? And there's like 5 or 6. Explosive, fast, instinctive, hits like a brick. That's more than one word. Compact, loves football.
You said how many?
Well, you can explosive, fast, instinctive, hits like a brick, compact, loves football. I think all of them kind of define you or tell you what kind of player you are. Which one of those do you think is the most of who you are?
All of them do, but I just say love football. You can just tell when I go out there, and you can just tell. I feel like I do a good job of showing that football means a lot to me, that I really love it by the way I play, by the way I lead, just everything that I do on the field. You can tell that I actually love football, and that just brings all the other words with it by the way I love football.
You're also someone that loves practice as much as a game. Is that true? What's your mentality about that?
Oh yeah, I take practice like in a game. I'm out there leading. I'm out there getting guys lined up, and I just come to practice with a lot of energy. One of my teammates make a play, whether we're going against scouts or the offense, or I make a play. We celebrate, because we're going to practice exactly how we're going to play on Saturdays.
UTSA 31-27 against North Texas just 5 weeks ago. In that game, Katie Davis had 12 tackles, a half a sack, half a tackle behind the line of scrimmage. You also, I think, knocked down a pass. This is a great showdown. Last year, you guys had to grind to get to the end of the year to get to a bowl game. This year, not easy, but at least you had control of your own destiny. How much did that help you enjoy the season?
Oh, yeah, it was great. Last year we had to wait until the last game to fight for a bowl game. This year we went ahead and got the bowl game out of the way with, so we didn't have to, stretch and worry about that. So it was like we didn't have that much pressure on us. We was already bowl eligible, so we knew the main thing was to win a conference championship, and that's what we just came in and we won the games, and we just did what we were supposed to do, and now we're here.
Good luck, Katie. Thanks for your time. Katie Davis, linebacker from North Texas. He played at Ennis High School. He is a phenomenal player for the Mean Green. And Phil Bennett, Seth Luttrell, the head coach, Coach Bennett, Jim Gush, of course, former Baylor assistant on that staff, among others. Thanks for your time. We appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thank y'all for having me.
Great to have you. Thanks to Taylor Bryan, who's as good as it gets in the business. We have worked with a lot of great media people here at Baylor and also as they've moved elsewhere. Katie Davis, that game's on Friday, 6:30, the CBS Sports Network. North Texas plays at UTSA for the Conference USA title. We've had both Jeff Traylor now and North Texas linebacker Katie Davis. Now, coming up next, Big 12 Championship is on Saturday in Arlington. Well, Brian Estridge, the voice of TCU athletics. What kind of a year has it been? He's been with us a couple of different times. He joins us again as they prep for the Big 12 title and possibly a chance to play for the national title. This is 365 Sports. Waco Custom Marketplace, your hometown grocery store, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, and they have specials right now for the holidays. Specials for the holidays when it comes to hams and turkeys. Either raw and or already smoked turkeys, hams with bone or not. And then on top of that, they have a butcher shop. And I had a bone-in ribeye over the weekend, and I get all of my steaks from Waco Custom Marketplace, and they custom cut exactly how I want. Bone-in ribeye, 1.25 to 1.5 inches thick, and they are absolutely delicious. They have a bakery with constantly working with fresh baked bread and kolaches every single day. And on top of that, if you want seasoning, sauces, marinades, you want charcoal, you want that, even cold drinks, cold beer, and cold wine. It's a hometown grocery store feeling inside, along with a bakery and butcher shop, which is rare, and it's right there at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Hi, I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Colgan Ford. It's that time of year. It's football season. And BK Ford is a proud supporter of the best high school football teams in Texas, right here in Central Texas. BK Ford is proud to sell the #1 truck in Texas, the F-Series truck, led by our leading rusher, the F-150, 45 years in a row. Lock in your best price and rate today by custom ordering your new F-150 at BK Ford. Simple, easy, trusted. Experience better at Bird Colgan Ford.
Hey, this is Bryce Petty, former starting quarterback and two-time Big 12 champion, and I know firsthand the importance of being in top shape both on and off the field. So listen up, men. If you're feeling beat down day in and day out and looking for that high-performance edge that separates the men from the boys, then look no further than the Petty Clinic Low T in Waco. Petty Clinic is a comprehensive men's healthcare clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Board-certified Dr. Kent Petty has a special interest in offering the highest quality medical care to men of all ages. Some of the services offered include screening and treatment for low testosterone or thyroid, infertility, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, while offering comprehensive wellness exams and complete men's health lab panels. High performance men, remember, it's not just a Petty thing. This is Bryce Petty, encouraging you to reach out and Google search Petty Clinic Low T or go to pettycliniclowt.com and get your complimentary lab screening today.
Howdy, Chet Garner here, professional guide, searching for bears in the wild. But not just any bears, oh no, a particular kind. With hundreds of thousands roaming freely in the wild, yet still hard to spot unless You know the signs. There they are, Baylor Bears. If you're a bear enthusiast or even a bear yourself, join me and let's find some bears in the wild.
Join the expedition at baylor.edu/alumni.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed. Everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible challenge. Hi, this is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like First Free Checking, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. The First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
This is Sikkim 365 Radio. Text us at 254-339-1122. The Sikkim 365 Radio text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
He is the voice of TCU Athletics and also a great friend of the show. He himself has his podcast with what he does covering TCU, and he's the voice of TCU Athletics. Brian Estridge joins us on 365 Sports. Now, be honest, did you plan like some sort of a vacation trip the first weekend in December before the year started?
Yeah, we were going to spend 8 days in Gun Barrel City, which we always do over the holidays. And for some reason, we're going to have to cancel that resort this time. Now, I tell you what, fellas, I had no idea that we would be sitting here talking today with an undefeated TCU team. I think when we talked in preseason, or at least at Big 12 Media Days, I think I shared with you. I thought this was an 8-win team. I thought with the talent they had coming back, I was giving Sonny Dykes credit for 2. And I thought, okay, they could win 6 on their own. 2 with Sonny, that puts them at 8. I had no idea that we would be sitting here right now at 12-0.
And not only that, not getting your starting quarterback who they thought they were going to have right out of the gate, and it changed. I can't think of another story like Max Duggan from losing the starting job to rightfully having a spot in New York, hopefully next week.
The next closest one, fellas, ironically enough, is Will Howard at Kansas State. A guy who played a bunch last year. Martinez comes in, takes the job, gets hurt. Now Will Howard starting at K-State, and they're playing some of their best offense of the year. But you're right, though, Paul. I mean, for a guy that the storyline that has been Max Duggan this year, with the injury to Chandler Morris, it puts him in. And listen, fellas, let's be honest. He had lost the job. The last 2 weeks at camp, Chandler Morris was better than Max Duggan. As much as Max fans may like to disagree with that, and I'm one of them. It was obvious if you were out there every day, and we were, you had a chance to see it. Hey, it was clear and it was evident that Chandler Morris was playing better than Max Duggan. So he loses the starting job. Then Chandler, and he doesn't leave. A lot of guys would have left. A lot of guys would have been frustrated. A lot of guys would have pouted. He kept working. Then Chandler gets hurt, and then Max, comes into the second half against Colorado. And then the rest is kind of history at this point. Doesn't get the job back, and it just played too well to even consider that. And so, yeah, it's been a great storyline. Max is one of those kids, and I probably have used this line with you guys before, and I apologize. He's one of those kids that you'd let babysit. I mean, he's just one of those kinds of guys. That he's a really good kid. He's a gentleman. He's a hard worker. He puts a lot of pressure on himself. I don't know how much fun he's having, but everyone else who's watching him is having a ton of fun.
How much fun is Sonny Dykes having?
Oh, man, do you think he's having a blast? And I tell you, those around him are having fun. This has been, and we talked about this before, I think. I mean, it's such a different approach and just a different vibe. He's humble. He's transparent. He is considerate. He's just one of those guys that you like hanging out with, and he's been that way to everyone. And I think that's been so refreshing. He's been gracious too. You know, that's the other thing, and how he handled the transition. He was gracious to the previous staff and has been. But now all that's done. I mean, let's just face it. You're 12-0. This is your team. This is your accomplishment. This is your program. And I think everyone at TCU kind of feels that way now.
Yeah, it's a completely different animal than what was 2014 when Baylor and TCU and, you know, who gets in, and Bob Bowlesby was kind of quiet in a way, and it was you know, they already a rivalry, and there was each other's fan bases going at each other when they should have been mad at the playoff committee. How much more relaxed knowing is completely in their hands, in their own destiny, that they can win this weekend and maybe not even win, although you don't want to put that out there, and win and get to the college football playoff?
Boy, it's a totally different feel. I'll just be honest with you, David. I mean, it is, yeah, there is a confidence about it. You know, going in, we had heard rumblings that week, you know, of the last game of the 2014 season that it really didn't matter what you did, you were going to fall. And it didn't make sense, but we had heard it enough that, okay, well, it's not going to happen. And, you know, when you go through that, and when you go through the analytics program there in Grapevine at the Gaylord, they used 2014 as an example. And, you know, based on the numbers, TCU wasn't supposed to be there. If you just base it on the numbers. And so now you base it on the numbers, TCU is supposed to be there. There's some arguing that the numbers have TCU there even if they lose on Saturday. I'm not willing to roll that dice. But I think that there is a bit of comfort knowing that you do control your own destiny. Although I will say this, guys. Yes, TCU controls their own destiny, but Frog fans should be sending care packages to South Carolina Gamecock fans, who for the last 2 weeks eliminated teams that could have been flying the ointment for TCU and Tennessee and Clemson. You know, in back-to-back weeks, South Carolina took out those two. So good for them, good for TCU that happened.
Brian, I think one of the other things the last 2 weeks has maybe shown us that, you know, the early talk in the season was like, yeah, TCU's having a great run, but can they really hang with any of the teams? If you look at how everybody's played, especially in the top four throughout the entire season, I think these four teams TCU can hang with anybody.
Yeah, you like to think that. I mean, you got 5 wins against ranked teams. You've gone on the road and you've won at a red-hot Kansas team. You've won at Baylor. You've won at Texas. You dominated Texas, you know, with 2 NFL running backs on their roster, and they had, 23 yards rushing. You know, all you can do is play the teams in front of you. And if you take care of that business, then confidence starts to brew, and all of a sudden you do think you can play with anyone. But, yeah, you look at the matchups. I mean, you know, everyone says Georgia's head and shoulders above the pack. Okay, maybe. Michigan looked really good against Ohio State. That surprised me. I'll give you that. You know, USC's coming on strong, but you know what? I'd play against their defense. You know, I think the defenses that we saw this year at Baylor and at Iowa State and some of those places were just as good, if not better. And so I think with all of that being said, you know, I think you may be onto something, Paul, that this may be a fairly evenly matched foursome.
Brian, I know there's probably some, you know, not totally revealing, you know, how everybody's doing, but injury-wise, how are the Frogs, knowing that the last, you know, couple weeks in particular have been a little beat up?
Yeah, and glad you brought that up because I was just sitting here working on our pregame script for Saturday already. One of the things we're going to talk about is finally it feels like the offense is going to be back at full strength. Quentin Johnston last week, they set him out. Could have played, you know, kind of what they were doing the couple of weeks prior to that where they would rest him during the week, play him on Saturday. He'd give you about 80%, get dinged up again, got to restart again. And so this week what they decided to do for the Iowa State game is just hold him out. And I think it made a big difference. In fact, Sonny talked about that. His practice on Tuesday was the best one he had in a month. And so I think you're going to see Quentin Johnston at full speed. I think you're going to see Kendra Miller at full speed. They held Darius Davis and Tate Barber out last week as well. I mean, they both got a couple of snaps, but no major play there. And so I think by almost preserving them last week, I think it's because it'll extend their shelf life this week against Kansas State. A little banged up at linebacker with Johnny Hodges. He left the game with a hamstring, but I think the report got better and better as the week has gone along. So he potentially could go on Saturday. And other than that, you're in pretty good shape.
There's a lot of players. Quentin Johnston's one of the was a semifinalist for Biletnikoff, not a finalist,
Right.
but he got that. Obviously, a lot of awards out today from the conference. Travius Hodges Tomlinson, a part of that Jim Thorpe Award finalist group, which would be awesome, a local kid here as well. But let's talk Max Duggan. I have a Heisman vote. I got the email this week. We have to vote by Monday. I will never vote until all the games are done. I know Army-Navy's the following week. Your thoughts about Max Duggan? Is there any question if he should be sitting in New York City when they announce the Heisman Trophy winner?
No question that he should be there, and I think you can make a legitimate case that he should win the trophy. I'll be honest with you. If you just look at the numbers, and I know you like numbers, he's got more than twice as many top 25 wins as Stroud and Williams combined. All right, and I'm just talking about this year. All right, when he plays top 10 defenses, if you just look at yards and games allowed against Iowa State, he put up points allowed. He put up 62 points against Iowa State, 3 touchdowns, 0 turnovers, wasn't sacked. When Stroud takes on Michigan and Iowa, he put up 77 total. But Max did it 62 in one game. All right. Williams hasn't faced a single top 10 defense all year. Fourth quarter comebacks. The Frogs have the 4th most points per game in the fourth quarter this year. The highest of any Heisman contender is the number that his team is putting up. He's been clutch. He's avoided negative plays on third down. All those things start to add up. And if we're going to base it on, you and I have a friend, Smokey and Randy Galloway, who, and you know this well, who used to say, "Watch the damn games."
Yeah.
If we're just watching the damn games, then I think you can make a case that Max Duggan is a Heisman Trophy winner.
I'm going to tell you one play, Brian. I know you got to go to another hit. The game against Baylor, and I brought this up a lot, it was like overshadowed. But on the drive that led to a field goal, or maybe it was the one that led to the field goal to win the game, he got away from Bryson Jackson, tried to escape, and willed his way to the sideline that saved him down and probably 18 to 20 seconds. To me, that doesn't seem like a Heisman moment, but it surely could be, at least in my eyes, when I look at what I look at.
And it shows you that he's stronger than new rope, man. I mean, that's the other thing. He's tough as nails. He's strong. He worked his way out of that, and he's heady, and he's always heady. And that's what I think people don't recognize or give enough credit to, is the fact that, he makes the right decision. Oh, by the way, and he's playing for a new head coach and a new system. That's got to account for something as well, doesn't it, when Heisman Trophy balloters decide to fill it out.
Thank you, man. Appreciate your time. Good luck this weekend.
You guys are the best.
You too. Brian Estridge, voice of TCU Athletics, and his thoughts about Duggan, the team, Sonny Dykes, and he has been on. He did, Craig. We had him on Big 12 Media Days, and he talked about just a different atmosphere. Travius Hodges said that back even in July, and it's turned out to be why this team maybe has played so free and easy for most of the year, despite some injuries down the stretch.
Yeah, I mean, they don't have a guy who's filled with conspiracies and vendettas and anger, in their postgame after every game, no matter win or lose. I mean, Gary Patterson was a great coach, but his attitude there towards the end, he was very unlikable. I mean, very unlikable. And I think even for his own fan base, he had become unlikable because every loss they had guys watching our practice. There was always something. There was always an excuse. There was always a complaint. There was always a vendetta. There was always a grudge, and that's just toxic. And I think it got toxic there, particularly by the end. And that's why a guy who accomplished all he did, and let's face it too, like Dennis Franchione doesn't get nearly enough, mention when it comes to TCU football as well. I was thinking about that the other day. Like, we all just say Patterson all the time, and it's like, it wasn't just him, but yeah, obviously he's got a statue there. I get it, but it's a situation where, sometimes you change bosses or you change companies or whatever. It's kind of that same deal of it's just new and it's different, but in a good way, and everything works smoother and better and happier as a result of that. And I think for TCU, they changed out CEOs and they brought in a guy who's wildly different, even being more of an offensive guy versus being more of a defensive guy. You look at where their strengths are, I think they're mostly on offense, and that played really well when you've got the number of weapons that they have who are all veteran guys now at this point. So a lot of things had to fall into place, but you just had to get that one domino right, and that domino was Sonny Dykes. And then, you can also go further down to his strength and conditioning staff and Kaz Kazadi and how good we know he is at his job, and Garrett Riley being, obviously a great offensive mind. Gillespie on the defensive side, obviously a guy who didn't get a lot of attention outside of just general circles because not a lot of people care about Tulsa football, but for those who know football knew he's a really good coach, and that was a really good hire by Sonny Dykes. So he just hit on pretty much everything. And then even the things they didn't get right, they got Chandler Morris gets hurt. And so all of a sudden you have no choice but Max Duggan's the starter, and that ends up working out beautifully to where he's probably going to be at the Heisman ceremony here in a few weeks. So just a magical run where Sonny Dykes made a lot of great moves, and a lot of things also fell their way. And I do think you have to have a combination of those things to have a season like this one. And here they are, and we'll see what they can do with the rest of the way. But really good stuff from the Frogs this year.
Gary Patterson, to me, at the end, kind of fell into the cliche of, look, it's nice to be important, but most of the time it's more important to be nice.
Yeah.
And, it's an old cliche, and I sometimes have to remind myself of it when I get mad, let's just, pump the brakes here. But that can spill over. He could try to compartmentalize in his head that all this vitriol I have for everything else is just directed outward and not inward at the team. But if you're angry about stuff that doesn't exist, how do you walk around and lead a team who's worried about, what is Coach Patterson mad about right now? Did he just get mad about the SMU thing again? And, I have to go and tell him that I'm this.
It was just weird. Time, man. Yeah. It was time. He had run his course. They needed to make a move. That's why they made a move in the middle of the year, even though he also, they did whatever they said of a mutual agreement in the middle of a season with a program you've been at that long. Mm-hmm. That's just weird, right? I mean, really, if we look back, that's kind of telling. So, yeah, it was just time. I'm not going to, harp on him. I think that, Patterson would probably say that he's got some things he can be better at, but he just had a really good year at Texas. Maybe he's going to go be the coach. Is there any more about that, by the way, the UNLV stuff?
Nothing more than we said yesterday.
Maybe there's something to that. Maybe he just sticks in Austin and, keeps enjoying the live music capital of the world or whatever, but he's a great coach. I just think that, yeah, he had run his course at TCU, and Sonny Dykes was the perfect hire at the perfect time and the perfect group of players, and it's all come together for them. And, past this year, it'll be very interesting to see when you've got to retool when you lose, what they're going to lose, kind of like what Baylor's facing this year. They're going to have to really revamp this thing, but, they've got a lot to use now at their disposal with the run that they're on, whatever they end up doing, this Saturday and then the Big 12 playoff, and they're set up to be, very strong moving forward, no matter who they lose after this season. So enjoy it while you can, though, because seasons like this don't just pop up all the time, especially not for programs like Baylor last year or TCU, even a step above this year.
Yeah. We do have a super chat I want to get to. We're going to get to a break, but let's go ahead and answer it now because it was asked a while back. Jacob DS50, and thank you, Clint, for pointing this out to me. I didn't have the chat room up on my screen for a few minutes. With Jake Haener back as QB for Fresno State, who do you have winning the Mountain West Championship between Boise State and Fresno State? I'm scared, of course, Jacob, a big Boise State guy.
I mean, that's great they have Haener back. I don't know. I kind of default to Boise State here. I think they're playing well. It's amazing that the whole Bachmeier situation, when you look back on it and kind of where that was a few weeks ago.
Worked out.
Yeah, to where it is now. And talking about Andy Avalos being on he wasn't on a hot seat because it was kind of too early for that, but there were some folks trying to kind of push it in that direction. I'm very happy for Jeremiah Dickey, but no, just without looking into it, off the top of my head, I go Boise State, but certainly the Haener factor makes it a lot more of an interesting affair.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a pretty evenly matched game. It's at home in Boise, so I kind of, that'll help out a lot. In the way that they've played from the early season on, Boise State has, their only loss since the UTEP game has been to BYU in a very close one, and so I'm leaning that way, but. And they beat Fresno State by 20 earlier in the year. I know that was, I think, without Haener in that game. Yeah, he was not in that game. So it'll be different for sure. But, yeah, I'm going to default to Boise State.
Text line. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I wanted to add as well that Boise State's quarterback, do you guys know where he's from? I only ask this when they're from a certain place.
He's from Texas?
Yeah, he's from Texas. I've had him on the Earl Campbell Tyler Rose Award now for – I don't know, I'd say 3 or 4 weeks out of the last 6 weeks or so. But he's played really well. Taylon Green. I was thinking Taylon Hendricks for some reason. I don't know what name that came from, but Taylon Green has played really well. Texas guy for Boise since taking over for Bachmeier. He's definitely been a jolt for them. And, I think Boise's the right call here.
All right, on the text line yesterday, and we didn't get to a lot of them, but I was reading some of them, and I want to respond to some of them today. From the 253, who are your top candidates for the Eddie Robinson Coach of the Year? I'm fortunate enough to be a part of that as well. My 3 finalists, I can't give that away, but I'll give you 5 names. And 2 of them, Lincoln Riley and Jim Harbaugh, all of a sudden are a part of the discussion. But also, I think Willie Fritz at Tulane, Sonny Dykes at TCU, and Josh Heupel at Tennessee. Who am I missing?
You say Dykes, Heupel,
Dykes,
Fritz.
Heupel, Fritz, and then
Harbaugh
and Lincoln Riley. And I cannot give you my vote. I wish I could. I
mean, how many? That's 5. That's already
you can only do 3.
Yeah. I mean, trimming it down, I would say you got to go Dykes, Harbaugh, and then after that, that's kind of who would you go? Heupel, Fritz, and Riley.
If it had been 3 weeks ago, Heupel maybe wins it.
I'm still going to throw Heupel in there.
That's fair. Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with whatever.
You're talking about 20 years of not only dysfunction on the field, but dysfunction around the whole program. So Josh Heupel's on my list. Sonny Dykes is on my list, and Jim Harbaugh. Even though that one's more fait accompli with they were good, everybody knew they were good, but they weren't. It was what he proved. It's not just a one-off.
Sometimes Coach of the Year goes to a coach who has a team that outperformed expectations. It sometimes should go to a guy that has tremendous expectations and even outperform perhaps those. And that might have been what Lincoln Riley did, no matter what, and also Jim Harbaugh.
Well, I think if you're going by that code, though, that's Sonny Dykes way more than it is those other
No,
guys.
that's what
Michigan
Dykes
was
would
in the
be-
playoff last year.
Yeah.
USC, I mean, that's still USC. And, Lincoln Riley's a great coach. I don't think, though, with the transfer portal that he had to do a miracle work there, and raise up a freshman class for 2 years and get them ready, like Matt Rule with Baylor a few years ago, pre-portal, where you had to grow the program from the ground up. Lincoln Riley just came in and was like, zip, zap, and here's this roster that's going to have a Heisman Trophy winner at quarterback and, a number of other guys that were really good. I think, Dykes and Harbaugh are slam dunks, and then Heupel, that's fair. But Fritz definitely deserves a lot of love. Riley deserves love. I'm not trying to take away from him, but I think if you're looking at who made the biggest difference
Impact
from last year, it's Sonny Dykes, and it's clearly Sonny Dykes.
Now, and again, don't forget about the names we mentioned because we should with what happened at KU and also Kansas State.
Oh, yeah,
but again, it's
sure.
on a national level. One note, Baylor had all that returning starter experience on the offensive line. Not a single player on their offensive line was named the first-team offense, and Gall and Galvin second-team offense. And then Siaka Ika on the defensive line, somebody asked if we could mention that, was named to the first-team defense as a defensive lineman. There were 5 taken. And, man, you talk about some studs. We got a break. Go ahead.
Yeah, they had Ika on the first-team defense. They had all second-team guys. Doyle, Gall, and Galvin were all offensive second-teamers, and then Doyle on the second-team defense, and then 15 honorable mentions, just indicative of the year that they had. And I think that, too, it goes to show you, obviously the growth of the Big 12 in other areas, that other teams now have, better players or as many good players. But, Baylor definitely a fall down the the totem pole there, and the talent not quite reaching the level that it did last year, obviously.
2 kids from the Waco area, Travius Hodges-Tomlinson and Quentin Johnston, both named first team All Big 12. When we come back, he's the voice of UCF, and they're in this game coming up. Of course, the American Conference Championship game, Tulane and UCF. Marc Daniels, he'll join us next, the voice of UCF on 365 Sports. Ideal MRI will save you money. Find out what hurts inside of your body, whether it's your shoulder, whether it's your back, whether it's your knee, whether it's your ankle, whether it is something somewhere. And, in fact, I had something that was bothering me. My right hip always seemed like at times it was just almost like there was a fish hook at times tugging away at me. So I got an MRI on that. Didn't show anything. Then I got one on my lower back at Ideal MRI. First of all, $497 or less every single time, and they could also get you help with your insurance deductible. So that's when I got and found out why my hip was bothering me, because I had a little bit of impingement in my L3 and L4. Got that fixed, got an epidural, and I've felt very, very good ever since. It was hard for even to walk, and now I feel great about it. So they help me. They can help you. They've done an MRI on my shoulder. They've done an MRI elsewhere. It is what they do, and they do it great. State-of-the-art technology, MRI machine, and the money you cannot beat. $497 or less, thanks to Dr. Rob Maxey and his great staff at IdealMRI.com in the Central Texas marketplace, just off of 35 in Waco.
In our logo and advertising, we say we are people that you can count on. What does that mean? It starts with providing a quality vehicle and quality service at a fair price. But it also means we do what we say we will do, and we treat people fairly with respect. It starts by hiring great people, good local folks who work hard with a caring attitude. Our employees are the real reason we are people that you can count on. Put us to the test and see for yourself that at Richard Carr Motors, we are people you can count on.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
It's pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Boots add protection. Good boots help you climb better and move forward faster. And when your son or daughter steps into the boots of a U.S. Army officer, they also learn how to lead. In these boots, they'll gain more confidence with expert training in one of more than 150 occupational specialties. In these boots, they'll stand a little taller and lead a team with diverse backgrounds and areas of expertise to successfully accomplish whatever challenge comes next. In these boots, they'll earn respect with valuable experience from day one that will give them solid footing for success into the future. Highly qualified candidates who earn a spot on our team can receive comprehensive health care coverage, college tuition assistance, and a bonus of up to $40,000. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
Bijan Robinson back in the backfield. 3rd and goal. Lining up out of the eye. Bijan, touchdown Horns.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
And here we go, 365 Sports. We have focused on that Conference USA Championship game with Jeff Traylor and UNT linebacker KD Davis. And also time to discuss, of course, the American Championship game, Tulane and UCF, and the voice of UCF Athletics, friend of the show, and Marc Daniels joins us on 365 Sports. Man, this seems to be a great matchup, Mark. And just your thoughts about UCF being in this game.
Well, guys, it's been a whirlwind of emotion the last couple of weeks for UCF. The Knights had themselves in position to win the conference and then host the conference championship game, and then stumbled when we lost to Navy at home and lost control of their destiny, and then didn't know what the scenarios may be like. And one of the scenarios was 4 computers that used to be used in the BCS model. Could that be a tiebreaker? And then UCF just had to go play until the college football playoff rankings came out last week. And to the shock of many people, UCF found themselves in the rankings, and it changed everything from a tiebreaker standpoint, and I think changed emotionally for UCF. And then you get a rivalry football game, and you get off to a 28-0 start. You think you're cruising. And then, as everybody knows, rivalry games, weird stuff happens. John Rice Plumlee, the UCF quarterback, has a hamstring injury. He comes out. Next thing you know, you go from up 31-7 to down 39-38 with 2 minutes to go, and you've got to find a way to win. And UCF did with an incredible catch by their tight end, Alec Holler, getting a foot down and making a one-handed grab, and you survive. And with that, you get a return trip to Tulane, where they've had an outstanding season, a really good football team. UCF was fortunate to win there a few weeks ago. Now we got to go back there and do it again. But it's 60 minutes for a chance to win a conference championship and get to the Cotton Bowl.
Mark, who is going to play quarterback this week? Is it going to be Plumlee, or is it going to be Orlando's favorite son now?
We'll find out. I mean, Gus Malzahn made it clear a couple times now in media opportunities that if John Rice Plumlee can go, he'll go. But it really is how the week progresses. And today's Wednesday. Tomorrow will be the last kind of official practice, and then we'll just have to see. I think UCF is preparing for both. Meaning, if John Rice can't go, Mikey Keene's ready to go. If John Rice does play, Mikey Keene will be ready to play. So it's just one of those things that you may not know until that first series. May come down to how he warms up. Clearly, UCF hopes that he can go. He was a huge factor in the first football game and beating Tulane as a run threat with a long touchdown run. He had a 64-yard touchdown run last week against South Florida. But Mikey Keene's kind of been the Mariano Rivera, the closer for you. He played a big role in UCF's win against Cincinnati when he came into the game. When Plumlee went down with an injury, he won the football game starting at Memphis, and then led UCF on the touchdown-winning drive against South Florida Saturday. So, Gus Malzahn has said he's got 2 starting quarterbacks. Each offers something different. Rice is a run threat, but, Keene's been in big moments as well for UCF.
Mark, what concerns you, or what are you kind of eyeing when it comes to the Green Wave? As you mentioned, already seen him recently, know the deal kind of there, but a few weeks later, what's kind of your thought process when you look at the challenge that Willie Fritz and company present?
Well, just some basic things. It's hard to beat somebody twice in a season, and then to do it at their place 2 times is quite challenging. There's a lot to respect about Tulane. This is a legitimate football team. Beat Kansas State, had the odd loss against Southern Miss, and then battled us. I mean, we needed a 16-play, 85-yard drive in 8 minutes to steal the football game against them earlier. They've got a dangerous quarterback in Michael Pratt. Tajay Spears is a phenomenal running back, almost 1,200 yards. Now, he got dinged up in the second half against us. Wasn't as big of a factor, but he was a big factor in their win at Cincinnati last week. So they've got some really good playmakers. And, guys, they spread the ball. They've got 7 wide receivers or tight ends with 20 or more catches. They don't have one dominant guy, but they got a bunch of guys with 20 or more. And then 2 really good linebackers that I think are going to play on Sunday, a secondary with some depth as well. So some things come into play. Look, both teams can look back at that game. And for UCF, They made a couple of turnovers. If they don't turn the ball over, they could have won by 3 touchdowns. If you're Tulane, they made some mistakes and felt like, hey, if we didn't turn the ball over, maybe we could have been in a position to play from the lead. So, look, UCF's an underdog. Tulane, rightfully so, I think is a favorite at home. There's some pressure on them for a program that has not been in this position in recent years to win a conference championship and get to a major bowl game. UCF has had that spot, although on this football team, there's a couple of guys that played in the Peach Bowl back in 2018, but not like 15 or 20 guys. So, I think it's a great opportunity for both. And, Tulane's earned the right to be home and an outstanding season. But I think UCF certainly looks forward to the opportunity to go there and try to win a championship.
Do you think, even though it did not materialize, the Willie Fritz story to Georgia Tech, which did not happen, do you feel like that is any kind of distraction for them?
Probably not, because his resolution to it, I think if the story was still out there, meaning wait for the weekend and after the game to make a decision, maybe it becomes a distraction. But I think since that matter has been resolved, it's funny. Brent Q got the job at Georgia Tech. He's a former UCF assistant. And UCF may have helped him get the job because after UCF beat Georgia Tech, another former assistant at UCF, Jeff Collins, got fired. And Brent had a chance to coach 8 games. As you guys know, sometimes an interim coach gets 1 or 2 games, doesn't get a chance to win over the football team. But Brent had 8 games, ended up getting the job. Very happy for him. Got to know Brent very well when he was here. Extremely a smart guy, and he'll do well. But I think for Tulane, they got resolution to it. Willie Fritz is a really good coach, guys. 195 wins. He does a phenomenal job with his football team. Terry Mahajer, our AD, almost tried to hire him for a job before, and it just didn't work out. So we've got tremendous respect. Gus knows Willie, and obviously there's a lot of respect there. So they're a very well-coached team, as you would think, from Tulane, and it starts with their head coach.
That last game was a really good one, and it's they are very physical. Do you think that is the balance of how this game shifts, or do you think that if UCF can kind of mud it up with them again?
I think, it sounds basic, guys, but I think the team that has success running the football, UCF ran the ball effectively at the start of that football game, then ran it late when they relied on our big running back, Isaiah Ballinger, to kind of grind it out. There was an odd 4th down play that we thought we'd get a call that they jumped offside. There wasn't a flag, and then it was a pass interference that extended that 8-minute drive. But for them, it's Tajay Spears. He had 135 yards, 70 came on one play. UCF did a pretty good job on him outside of that, but he was dinged up a bit in the second half. So I do think it comes down to which team is effective running the ball, limits penalties and turnovers. And then I always think in games like this, there's 2 odd plays, whether it's a trick play, whether it's a long return that flips the field. I think every one of these games has a few odd plays, and I think the team that executes one or stops one sometimes gets an advantage. Both teams will tweak some things the first time they played, and like I said, I think both teams could feel like they should have won either by a greater margin or, Tulane's side would have been, hey, if we don't make mistakes, then we could have had the lead. And that's what championship games are supposed to be about. I think they're 2 evenly matched teams. Is there a big advantage because UCF has won there before? I don't know if it's a big advantage, but I do think familiarity with the locker room, the sideline, and so forth. There's a nice little fan fight going on now about, ticket distribution and was the game sold out? Was it not? Did we give tickets back? And UCF took a ton of folks the last time to New Orleans, even though a short week to turn it around. I think they'll travel well, but as I understand, Tulane expects maybe their largest crowd ever in their stadium.
Marco, what kind of feeling was there around the fact that this might have been the last War on I-4 game for a while? I know it's not, Harvard-Yale in terms of history, but there's definitely some history there, and obviously these 2 programs are about to go their separate ways. Was there anything kind of special or unique about this last game there, what might be the last game for a while between USF and UCF?
Well, the game was insane. Again, a 28-0 lead for UCF, and then you're down 39-38. So the game itself was crazy, and one that fans can talk about for quite some time. And if you're a UCF fan, you're grateful that they pulled it out because of everything that was on the line to get to a conference championship game. Look, the fan and the broadcast for me would love to see the series continue for many reasons. The proximity of the 2 schools, players that have competed from Pop Warner in high school and know each other well. Most of the fan reaction, which is somewhat, good, a little bit over the top sometimes. I think that's good and healthy. So So that part of me wishes it continues. There's the business side, guys, that we've talked about before, of expansion, realignment, and money that you just understand makes it really difficult. Of no fault of South Florida, before UCF was invited to the Big 12, the league plays an 8-game conference schedule. So they went out to fill their conference schedule with as many non-conference games as they can. UCF actually had some vacancies. We had a hard time getting people to come here to play. South Florida took more 2-for-1s. We didn't really want to take as many or take any. And then moving to the Big 12 at 9 conference games, not as many games for us to fill. South Florida's Alabama coming to Tampa next year. It's part of a 2-for-1 deal. They just don't have any openings. And for UCF, we're running out of openings as well. So it's going to make it difficult, I think, in the foreseeable future for the two teams to play. It's not impossible. Both athletic directors have openly talked about a desire to see to make it happen. But when it comes down to, are you going to get out of this game or that game? And guys, you know better than me. When you got 9 conference games the year that you've got only 4 home, 5 on the road, you need as many home games because we all got budgets to balance. So that's, a factor that comes in to play there. There's a small little part, and I say a small little part, that UCF fans won't forget. Years ago, when then South Florida President Judy Genschaft lobbied to block UCF's move as a football-only school of the Big East. She successfully did that, and UCF fans won't forget that because it was their attempt to kind of leave UCF behind. So there's the other side that says, see ya.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's where you are now.
Yeah, and Mark, I know there's this game, and there's a bowl game, but the momentum, even with the loss to Navy, that was kind of shocking, but that's a team hard to prep for. The thoughts that here you're 2 games away from being basically a member of the Big 12 in football as soon as the bowl game wraps up. How much of that momentum is still there?
Oh, I think there's a ton of it. Guys, look, I'm a believer, and this is my 28th year at UCF. I think a big reason why UCF was able to gain and keep respect in the college football playoff rankings is because they're headed to the Big 12. I think the additional coverage, that affiliation beginning to sink in, I think was a big part of it. That's why there was a shock of when UCF lost to Navy, like, well, they're not going to be ranked anymore. And I can give you the football reasons why they were still ranked 2 top 25 wins over Cincinnati and Tulane. Louisville got into the top 25. We played it earlier in the season. But I do think the building of UCF's brand from the success of 2017 and 18 and on, and I do think headed towards the Big 12 kind of help now begin to paint the image of who UCF is. It's not typical of G5 teams having 3 losses and still being ranked. So I think that all played a factor in it. And now UCF finds itself in a spot to try to win their 5th title in 10 years of the American. And if they're fortunate to do that, get to play in a major bowl game and ride that momentum after this game into what we all know is going to be kind of a crazy world of the transfer portal, recruiting, and then hopefully a major bowl game. And I think that's the way that UCF was looking for headed into the Big 12 next year.
Hey, what was your reaction to Luke Fickell going to Wisconsin? Obviously, you guys know each other, not the conference, Cincinnati, and they're headed to the Big 12. But the fact that he's now at Wisconsin.
Yeah, I mean, obviously a lot of respect for Luke. He did a phenomenal job. The first football game against UCF that he faced was in 2017, where it was so lopsided after a lengthy rain delay. The parties agreed to not play the final 7 minutes of the game because it was so lopsided. They'd rather go back out there and to grow from where they were then to become, the dominant team in the American for the last 2+ years is a compliment to him. I'm just guessing from a distance to a degree that Luke may have felt like he peaked at Cincinnati, which I think is a great program. I think is a great job for whoever gets it, and they ride momentum into the Big 12. Maybe he felt for himself personally, can I get any better than what I did last year? The expectations, maybe a certain level, what may be realistic with everybody transitioning to a very competitive league. And maybe he just felt like, hey, chance to get a massive payday at a place that has even more resources, maybe it was just the right step for him. But I think, as everybody knows, that program set a great history of hiring good coaches that keep it going. And I think the foundation's in place there with good facilities, a very talented base of recruiting around there, and a lot of good players coming back, that whoever gets it, I think, is in a really good spot. And I don't think Cincinnati's about to take steps back. I think that there's a base there that guys like Luke Fickell and others built that kind of helped it be competitive year in and year out.
Mark, great stuff. Thank you. Can't wait for next year. And, of course, we have you on multiple times since the announcement and all the speculation back in the fall of 2021. We appreciate it. Good luck this weekend.
All right, guys. Thank you very much.
Playing at Yulman Stadium in New Orleans, which is a really nice place that they have for Tulane. Willie Fritz and what he's done. That game is at 3 o'clock Central on ABC, following the Big 12 championship game between K-State and TCU that kicks off at 11 o'clock in Arlington. This is 365 Sports. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco. Ted Teague, the general manager, a great staff of those who will help you find the car you're looking for. Pre-owned and, of course, brand new. SUVs, trucks, Ram trucks. You want Jeep? They have that. You want pre-owned? That's what I bought back, in 2020 in the spring, and I'm glad I did. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, they have a treatment of the customers that's very special. And I felt that with AJ from the time that I called him to the time I walked on the lot to the time that we went through the process and found the car that I bought. First-rate employee training, a fantastic customer service department, expert knowledge among staff members. And if you walk up there, find somebody that say, hey, I want to know all of the details. They're going to tell you exactly what you need and also make sure that's the car you want or whatever vehicle. Rigorous top-to-bottom dealership inspection by committee on not just what they sell, but also what you bring in when I talked about the customer service department. I got to go by there later in the week to get my oil changed and check the tires, maybe get them rotated. Can't wait because I know they're going to do a great job. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, Loop 340 and east of 84 in Waco.
Genco's Black Friday Cyber Monday auto loan special is here. Apply for your auto loan online and receive a 0.15% loan discount. Plus, every auto loan gets 90 days with no payments. Then have a chance to win 90 more days with no payments. Black Friday Cyber Monday only at Genco. This special runs till December 2nd. Every online application gets an additional discount plus 90 days no payments. Only at Genco. Subject to credit approval, membership eligibility, and loan policies. For more information, go to GencoFCU.org, member NCUA.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. Nachos and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, hand or wrist injuries, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trusts. Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Hi, this is Paul Catalina. I recently got engaged to the love of my life, but the most important thing that I had to do before I popped the question was get that perfect ring. And I know nothing about rings. So I went to the wedding ring store, Boozer's Jewelers on Valley Mills Drive. I knew I needed a custom design, and that's exactly what they do. 9 out of 10 of their engagement rings are designed in-house. The entire process took less than a month, and they were great every step of the way. Great options on financing, excellent selection, and talented designers. My fiance and I get nonstop compliments on the ring. I only deserve credit for doing the smartest thing I could, walking into Boozer's and letting them work their magic. Your one-of-a-kind fiance deserves a one-of-a-kind ring, and that's what you get at Boozer's. Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store on Valley Mills Drive.
Did you know Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco is open to the public? Next time you're in town for a Baylor athletic event or you're in town for tourism, take advantage of their day passes for $10 a piece or the weekend for $30. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers 40 group exercise classes, including indoor cycling and yoga, boot camp, and bar. New free weights, weight machines, TRX, rowing machines, stationary bikes, new treadmills, new elliptical machines, and a spacious weight room floor. Personal training with Christy London, Randall Corley, and Alec Bach, where you will be encouraged to grow. Sauna, whirlpool, tanning bed, kids club, 16 tennis courts, and 8 pickleball courts, and youth and adult tennis and pickleball lessons available. Waco's premier experience where you can help your mind, body, and soul. Visit wacotennis.com or visit them next to Hawaiian Falls on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. Are you a Sikkim 365 superfan? Then try out our premium subscriptions at Sikkim365.com.
All right, we have one story. Of course, Ren Baker, the new AD at West Virginia. Craig, you got a quick note on Neil Brown as far as what they're saying?
Yeah, I mean, West Virginia coming out with an official statement that says Neil Brown's sticking around for next year. Done deal. He will continue as head coach. Ren Baker's already discussed it, in taking the job. And so, yeah, that's a done deal. Neil Brown's back next year.
Tim Brando, Fox Sports. He is our college football czar for this show and should be probably around the country. Joins us again on 365 Sports. Man, this is the time of the year, right? We have the last rankings coming up Sunday, conference championship, Heisman Trophy, and then all of this stuff going on with coaches. And your thoughts, which one of the coaching hires or firings surprised you the most in the last 2 to 4 days?
Oh, let's see. Gosh, that's a tough one, Smoke. Let me think about that one a little bit. I'm encouraged by the fact that Neil Brown is staying. Let me begin by saying that. But I think this is one of those situations where the new athletic director is saying, you know what, they had a really rough schedule. This is a difficult situation for them within the Big 12. That period when I saw them against Texas, they were in the middle of a road schedule within the conference that you couldn't really do anything about. And it was bad, to have that many road games in succession within the league. And, of course, the non-conference being what it is. Gosh, let me see. Which one would bother me the most? I don't think any of them recently bother me. I'm a little bit surprised that Wisconsin got rid of Paul Chryst and then didn't hire Jim Leonard, that they went with Fickle, which was very un-Wisconsin-like and really doesn't – I don't know why you would have made the change to Jim Leonard mid-season, showcase him to everybody else with the understanding that you're not going to hire him. I thought the whole purpose behind firing Chris was to give Leonard, an opportunity. And I thought he handled that opportunity pretty well, but not good enough, apparently, to satisfy Wisconsin. And the notion that they could get Fickle is understandable. Luke is a great coach. But I'm going to just tell you, the moment Ryan Day is gone, Luke Fickle is the guy at Ohio State. Okay. So they're going to invest in Luke Fickle. And my guess is Fickle will be good at Wisconsin, maybe even great. But the moment there's a change at Ohio State, I think he's the number one target. Well, so that surprises me a little bit. I think there will be some maybe a little Big Ten coaching incest like we have in the SEC is about to begin taking place, Oh,
God.
Tim, what did you think about the Hugh Freeze? I know I saw your tweet about Hugh Freeze, but overall, coaching-wise, it's an excellent hire. He's got some baggage he's going to have to deal with publicly, but what do you think about it?
Oh, I thought it was the perfect hire, and they could have had a lot less drama in this thing if they had just gone ahead and said, this is what we want, and not allow Jimmy Sexton to control the narrative the way they did. Jimmy was milking them for all they could to get Kiffin, and that was going to cost them about $3.5 million more per year, and they wound up getting the guy they really wanted, and I think is a much better fit than Lane. and he's also $3.5 million a year cheaper. So, Auburn gets to hold on to about $21 million, which, given what they're already paying Gus Malzahn and now Brian Harsin, I think walked out of there with $15 million cash. They probably need to save a little dough anyway, right? Use that for NIL, use it for assistant coaches, whatever. But he was a really good fit there. I think he will win immediately, and I think it's going to make the SEC just, even better. And the Southeastern Conference's Western Division, filled with incest, is really fun to watch. That league has more drama within it than the NFL does. I mean, think about it.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, it does. It's made for TV, absolutely. I guess there's one more big job that's now confirmed as of a few days ago. Matt Rule in Nebraska, and we had Coach Rule on shortly, I guess the day he was announced, actually, and he had made a very interesting remark, Tim, about the Big Ten and about, basically the money they're going to have. I mean, he says as much about the NIL game, and they'll be able to go out and get players from Texas and do all those types of things. How much do you like or whatever feel about the Nebraska Matt Rule hire, but also how much do you see that separation between the haves and the have-nots as far as the conferences go starting to really seep in, especially in light of some of these coaching moves?
Paul?
Sorry.
Sorry.
Fellas, my bad. I didn't hear about half of that. I didn't hear. Sorry.
No, that's
what
okay.
Was the last
okay.
So how do you feel about the Matt Rule Nebraska hire? And when he was on with us that day, he was also talking about basically they're going to keep recruiting. He's obviously going to recruit Texas. He's got ties, but he was talking about how like the NIL side of things and the revenue side of things being in the Big Ten is going to be a huge advantage. How much do you see that separation with those top two, the Big Ten and the SEC, already starting to see that kind of valley forming versus the others?
Well, honestly, I think from system to system, from program to program, look, I don't see much of a difference in facilities or in infrastructure between the Big 12 and the SEC or the Big 10, other than they're smaller. Okay, the stadiums are smaller and the campuses are smaller because you've got private schools like the one in Waco and like the one in Fort Worth. But my goodness, it's top shelf, the facilities that you have there. And the same is true at TCU. I think that's all relative, fellas. I think it's like a per capita deal. If you look at the numbers of people that are being serviced, the size of the program, and what they have, I just think a lot of fans, maybe even some media, get caught up in all these television rights that they see that have been ballooned to exorbitant amounts of money in both the Big Ten and the SEC. That's really not because of the size of the school. It's because of the size of the population bases in the markets that they represent. There are simply more eyeballs on Big Ten football, whether on television or in the stands, and more eyes on SEC football, whether on television or in the stands. I don't think it affects the influence or impact of a recruiting visit for a player. I just think I think that's a relative thought that some people easily bring up, but I don't see it as an issue. Now, for what Matt was saying, and I did hear a good portion of that interview, I agree with him. I'm a little bit surprised, to be honest with you, that he was so enthusiastic about coming to Nebraska, knowing their situation, has been historically in the modern era much worse than Baylor's. Now, Baylor was a more salacious story when he got there because of the tawdry aspects of what the allegations were and what was proven in the Briles case. Okay. But Nebraska, they always had players. And even if you recall, Nebraska has had clearly the biggest recruiting problem of any Division I powerhouse in recent memory. And it's now gone through well over 2 decades of issues with several coaches that had succeeded elsewhere. Okay, whether it was Mike Riley, who had done well at Oregon State, most recently a guy that looked like he was an automatic. I called him the next generation Saban after what he did at UCF. Mm-hmm. And one of your homegrown couldn't get it done. there is a systemic recruiting problem at Nebraska, the likes of which Baylor has never seen. So the fact that he enthusiastically embraced that opportunity, Trev Albert, give him credit. The AD at Nebraska did a hell of a job to get him because of all the hires. You asked me about the one that surprised me most negatively in recent weeks and months. Fellas, I don't think there's any bigger prize for any athletic director or program than Matt Rule at Nebraska. That is the home run of home run hires that have been made in recent weeks.
So, Tim, last night, yet another one of the college football playoff standings release rankings, and it seems pretty cut and dried. 4 teams can win this weekend without any drama, but then, of course, there's always upsets that can happen. Did you see any of the committee massaging anybody in particular to kind of set up what could be Sunday afternoon?
Yeah, well, I mean, I thought they did their best to prepare Alabama for bad news last night. Hey, we're keeping you in the hole. You're not on deck. Ohio State's on deck. Okay, with the understanding being that if TCU were to lose, and listen, they were talking up TCU in ways it really was go back in time, right, and listen to what Boo had to say, what Boo Corrigan had to say about how the committee was so concerned about TCU falling behind in these games and how they applied that to them and then applied a totally different standard to the brand name. Well, now he's whistling a different tune after TCU wins the way they did on the road in a game that they had to have there in Waco, and then they come back and just bludgeon an Iowa State team that they had, that had been competitive with just about everybody else they had played in the Big 12. So I think what they were trying to say last night was, Ohio State, you're fine. Among the playoff privilege, you're going to be the first to get in if anybody stubs their toes. But Alabama, sorry, your best wins are against 4-loss teams in the SEC. Your best wins are against teams like Mississippi State and Ole Miss that lost 4 games this year. So when LSU pulled the El Foldo at A&M, that certainly hurts Alabama's plight, because if LSU looked good, then it would help Alabama. But same was true with Ole Miss. Losing the way they did certainly doesn't help Alabama either. So Ohio State does have better wins, more signature victories against quality opponents. The Penn State road win, especially when you look at the way the Nittany Lions have played down the stretch, that's a significant win, the kind of win that Alabama doesn't have. So if TCU were to lose, guys, it's definitely going to be Ohio State. TCU will not get in if they're not undefeated, in my opinion. And Ohio State will get in to that spot that they vacate. But if USC were to lose, Alabama fans are on the edge of their seats saying, hey, man, we're coming. We're PPP. We're pure playoff privilege. We always get in. You can't have this Alabama Invitational without us. I mean, that's their mindset. And I thought last night the committee, through the efforts of Boo Corrigan, did the best that he could to let them know that if USC were to lose a close game to Utah again in a rematch, USC still has more significant and better victories than Alabama does, and USC will not be moved. USC will stand pat. So I think USC, just like Georgia, could afford a loss and still get in over Alabama. All right, but Ohio State could gain entry. That's what I took away from last night.
Tim, Texas A&M, Jimbo Fisher fired offensive coordinator Darryl Dickey. He is going to have to make some changes before the A&M really shows how much money they do have in the oil fields in West Texas. But do you think when he hires the next coach that he will be able to take his hands off the reins enough to really let that guy go?
Well, that's where the rubber meets the road. Okay, that's he has to do what Brian Kelly did at Notre Dame after he had that 4-8 fiasco, and just kind of look in the mirror and find the enemy and realize it's him, and that he's got to make some really swift changes in the way he goes about conducting his business as a head coach. my thoughts on A&M, fellas, as you know, going way back into the summer about them being overrated, had nothing to do with Jimbo Fisher and his coaching capabilities. All right, it had to do with the expectation level being where it was for a program that didn't have a quarterback and had really the only credibility that the ranking had was, summertime magazines and 24/7 recruiting paraphernalia telling everybody how great your 5-stars are who haven't done anything and haven't invested into the Texas A&M program at all. Just having 5 stars alone doesn't make your program top 10. It just doesn't. And, and he got into a little bit of a mess by being sidetracked by the Nick Saban brouhaha, back in May. And I think he just was asleep at the switch there. And to some extent was guilty of hubris in the way he reacted to it. So, Jimbo's got to take a look at him. He's a good coach. He's a very good coach. I'd still say if you said top 10 current coaches in college football, does Jimbo belong based on resume and based on accomplishments? Yes, absolutely. But in today's game, with the changes that have been made and the way you've got to deal with players from an offensive standpoint, particularly understanding that they come in, but there's no guarantee they're going to be there for 4 years. You can develop, yes, but you have to develop and also keep them happy as you're developing them. It's not the same game that it once was. And, Jimbo falls into that age category that he might be saying the right things, that doesn't mean that he's believing in the things he's saying. And I feel the same way about Saban. These guys are, talking up NIL and talking up the portal, but in truth, they really don't like it. They don't like it at all.
Tim, I was watching the Kansas State game, obviously the broadcast, and you have that game this week with Fresno State and Boise, which is a hell of a game. I'm telling you right now, it is, and I'm not saying this because you've joined us a lot, because I would say this anyway, the kind of just the chemistry with you and Spencer is truly elite. And it's almost as if you're the same person in different ways. You don't always agree on everything, but it really is very, very listen. It's a great listen. Appreciate what you're doing. And then also your thoughts about what you have this week.
Well, thanks for saying that, Smoak. I'm having a blast. And I have, from time to time, people have said to me, don't you wish you were doing this or that? And the truth is, no, I'm doing everything that I want to do. And I'm doing it with exactly the right partner that I want to be doing it with at a stage of my career when some might say it's the autumn of, a 5-decade career as we end my 4th decade. And we're seeing, 3 conferences of football. Okay. We're seeing Big 12, Big 10, and Pac-12 through the course of the year, which has enabled me to see games at the Rose Bowl, at the Horseshoe, in places like Lubbock, Texas, and Manhattan, Kansas. Okay, and this week we do the conference championship for the Mountain West, which was really thrilled today talking to the coaches at Fresno State, because Jeff Tedford and I go back, 25, 30 years. His defensive coordinator was once the coordinator at Holy Cross when Gordy Lockbaum was playing both ways in the mid-'80s and finished, I think, 5th or 6th in the Heisman Trophy balloting when I was doing game day. So maintaining relationships with the old guard, like those guys, and then getting to know people like Kenny Dillingham. By the way, another great hire. I think the kid, 33, 34 years old at Oregon, working for Dan Lanning, had been at Auburn, as you know, brought Bo Nix with him to the program, and now is going to go to Arizona State. Seeing these young guys that would tell me, hey, you're the soundtrack of my football career. That's cool to hear from the younger ones. And then from the older ones, it's like, man, I remember when you were doing blank, blank, blank. So I'm as happy as I could ever be. Fox has been great to me. The so-called size of the game. Hey, Tim, you're not doing the number one game. So the number one game may not be the most competitive game. Might not be the best game. Poor Joel and Gus had a lot of blowouts between Ohio State or Michigan and somebody else in the Big Ten, while we might have had a game that went to overtime, or double overtime. So who's the, what size the audience level potentially might be doesn't really matter to me as much as just getting to do it and getting to be in the, inside the ropes, meeting with and being with the people that impact a sport I love. So I really appreciate you saying that. As for the Boise State-Fresno State game, these are two teams, fellas, that, had to reboot at mid-season. The kid Hayner, who had looked to be at Washington when DeBoer was going there, when he found out that Coach Tedford was coming back after he had to take an illness sabbatical through COVID, when he found out he was coming back, he decided to return to Fresno State. And then he got hurt in the USC game. Most people thought he tore up his ankle for good. He'd be out for 10 to 12 weeks, have to have surgery, and he got a second opinion. All of a sudden, the kid comes back the last 2 weeks of the year and helps win their way into the Mountain West Championship game. And the kid at Boise State is a similar story. Dirk Cutter came out of retirement, for crying out loud. His son was a walk-on receiver there, and former NFL head coach and former Boise head coach decided to come and help Avalos, the head coach, out to be his OC, and they salvaged their year and get to play the championship game at home. And by the way, just like the Rose Bowl, David, I have never done a game on the blue field. We went to the blue field in 2020, the COVID year, but the game got called because of COVID. Boise didn't have enough players to play, so we didn't get to do the game there. We wound up doing the Mountain West title game in Las Vegas, and it was San Jose State and Boise that year in the final. But this time I get to go to Boise. Now, the field may be white with snow,
yeah, yep.
but it is a blue field still, and I'll get to see it this Saturday, right after World Cup and right before the Big Ten Championship.
Tim, we've got to go, but you want to give 30 seconds to a minute on John Hadel, former Kansas quarterback who passed away, great quarterback with the San Diego Chargers?
Yeah, as a kid growing up, a little bit like Bart Starr and a little bit like, say, Don Meredith, guys that when we were 5, 6, 7 years old watching NFL football, John Hadel was one of the greatest stars the AFL ever had with the Chargers, playing with Lance Allworth and Bambi in his prime and all those guys. And then getting to know him later as a coach in my earliest days at ESPN, and to know that he was so innovative and such a great teacher of the game. He influenced and impacted the game. He'll go down as probably one of the greatest football players to ever grace that state, the Sunflower State. He was just incredible. I think after Gale Sayers, he's got to be your most popular player. And then to become – very few guys, David, are both great on the field as players and equally outstanding as coaches. And John Hadel was all of that. It was an honor for me to be old enough and young when I met him to get to know him both as a player and as a coach.
Thank you, Tim. Appreciate it. Good luck with the broadcast this week, and we'll have maybe get you on for a post-college football standings discussion.
Sure. Happy to do it. Look forward to it.
Tim Brando, Fox Sports, with us, and has been with us on many times over the last couple of 2.5 years on 365 Sports. We have more to come, the 5 o'clock hour. We're rolling along. Travis Roeder, his thoughts about Baylor football as they hit the break before the bowl game, that and more. And yes, we will dive into Baylor getting mauled by Marquette in men's basketball. This is 365 Sports.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac, they have great customer service. They have great deals as well right now over at Richard Carr. They are the people that you can count on, not only for a great deal, but also for that great customer service, and that includes life after your car as well. Right now over at the dealership, they finally got a full lot once again, although cars, trucks, and SUVs having just hit it are already getting peeled right off the lot, as it's been a little while since there's been a flood of new vehicles. But now's the time. If you've been waiting for the supply chain issues to kind of correct themselves, the microchip issues to kind of correct themselves, now's the time to hop on over to Richard Carr and get yourself in a new ride. That could be anything from the 2022 GMC Sierras to the Acadias to even the Terrains. How about Cadillac and their XT4 and XT5 SUVs? Those are just a handful of the offerings that Richard Carr has available right now for you to test drive and check out. Maybe what you're looking for is not there, however. Get on their inbound vehicle list and you can cut in line for cars that are in production but not quite in stock, or you can even let them help you design the exact truck or SUV you want, and Richard Carr will have GMC prioritize it for you. They've got new trucks on the lot, dozens of quality pre-owned cars and trucks in stock. All of those pre-owns have undergone a 172-point inspection, and if you want to drive your current car longer, they have award-winning service and collision repair. So go to richardcarr.com to see service specials and set an appointment for quick and reliable service from the dealer you can count on. For over 23 years in Central Texas, built a reputation as the people you can count on for your automotive needs. Run by proud Wacoans, proud Baylor Bears. Log on to richardcarr.com today. Call now or go see them now off Highway 6 at the Imperial exit.
I'm going to tell you a tale of two companies founded 25 years ago. The first, Pickup Outfitters, started as a little shop on Lake Erie Drive by a local company selling the truck bumpers they were making in Waco. Then, 6 years ago, new ownership took up the cause of battling vehicle nudity, vowing to fight until there were no more naked trucks in Central Texas. And so far, they estimate they've outfitted more than 40,000 trucks at Pickup Outfitters. Now, the second company's story is not as impressive. They too started 25 years ago, but didn't have the vision of Pickup Outfitters, and to date, they have not outfitted one single naked truck in 25 years. So we'll celebrate the 25th anniversary of Pickup Outfitters with money-saving specials and valuable prizes. The second company will support them too by giving away 25 one-month subscriptions to their online service called Netflix. Save and win the Pickup Outfitters 25th anniversary celebration through Thanksgiving. Details online at createacommotion.com.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302. Do
you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma, and they have to come here. They're used to lights, they're used to water in their mouth, they're used to experience, they already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8 year old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby is a homegrown, locally owned pizza place that's out of this world. Everything from the dough, the sauce, the sausage topping is made fresh in-house. Not to mention the amazing pizza pillows, the chicken wings are to die for. Try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries or tots, plus great specials on food and drink every single day. Shorty's is also the perfect spot to watch the game with your friends. Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby. Tell them Paul sent you by.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year. Whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street behind the bank.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. Want more updates during the day? Follow 365 Sports YT on Twitter.
Travis Roeder, Sikkim365.com college football analyst, joins us as we have talked to Ricky Thompson, among others, to look ahead to Baylor. And now one of the stories today, Kyron Drones has entered the transfer portal, says he's still keeping his options open about Baylor, but usually that's not the case. Although Katie Davis of North Texas, the All-American candidate at linebacker we had on earlier, decided to stay at North Texas. Travis, how does this affect, you think, the quarterback room? We know Shapen, we know Novosad. Your thoughts about Kyron Drones?
Well, I mean, I was disappointed to see it. I think just from what I know about him as a prospect, and he's still young, I think I would love to have him back on the team, and I imagine the coaching staff would too. I just want to. I hope you didn't jinx things there with saying that we've got Novosad, the Smoky, and that I guess I'll wait till signing day to make sure that's ironclad. I know all indications there are that is the way it is, but you never know until the signature's on the line. So we'll see there. But obviously it creates an interesting situation for the spring where, and for the bowl game, honestly, where basically they have one scholarship quarterback on the roster right now. And then if Novosad signs and comes for the spring, they'll really only have two. And one of those being a true freshman. And the other one is a guy in Shapen who I think has had not the season that we had hoped for him. And so, I think, if Austin Novosad comes in the spring, it probably will be a true QB competition, but just between those two guys. So you've got to imagine, I do not think that they would go into the spring with only those two quarterbacks. I think they're going to be looking to add somebody in the portal. That's not me reporting anything. It's just kind of me using somewhat common sense. I don't think they would take anybody just to have a warm body, but I imagine they're going to want to have more competition than just a couple of scholarship quarterbacks. Maybe that waits until after next spring, but I imagine that if Kyron elects not to come back to Baylor, then that'll probably be the direction that they're looking.
Do you think and this kind of goes into maybe why he's trying to find a different fit, but that their scheme this year, just didn't fit the guys that they have, or the guys that they have didn't buy completely into the scheme?
Okay, so I think they were in a kind of a tough position in the sense of, Kyron is not the pure runner that I think a lot of fans have made him out to be. I get a lot of comments from people saying, like, why don't we put Kyron in there and run the Gary offense and just run the ball? I mean, he's as he showed in that West Virginia game, he's got some great arm talent. He's got a big arm. He's just more inaccurate than Blake is. And so I think it was kind of I think the system fits them both. I think the difficulty that the coaching staff is having right now is in how you want to be able to sell the type of system that you're running for recruits, and obviously not just for the recruits. I mean, they think it's the best offensive system. So, but I think they kind of got caught in a quandary with Gary where they said, look, we can run things back with Gary this year, but it's going to involve running the quarterback a lot. That's not the kind of quarterback we want to recruit to. So, it's a tension between what do we do that's now to try and create the best possible team at this moment versus what do we want to build for towards the future. So I imagine that was kind of what went into the factor that was the factor that went into what they decided to do this year when they picked Shapen over Gary. And I imagine as well with not giving Kyron too many reps this year. I'm sure that if he deserved the reps, he would have earned them. Again, that's what's very hard to speculate. Whenever you're an outsider speculating on whether a backup who hasn't played much should be playing, you don't really know how they're practicing. But just from what I saw when I was able to go to the open portions of practice, Kyron's very impressive physically. He's got a great arm, but he was noticeably less accurate than Shapen. Chapin was really on the money with a lot of those throws on the move. And I think we saw this year his struggle has been, okay, he's really good on the move, but what happens when he sticks in the pocket? That was a bit of a meandering answer, but I think that basically they're trying to move towards a system where they want Blake to play better from the pocket. Guys like Novosad should be really good from the pocket, and that's the system they're moving towards in the future.
Travis, what surprised you most about the 6-6 record?
Yeah, Craig, I feel like you should be a little bit meaner to me. I mean, my goodness, I was way out on a limb there. I said 11-1. Baylor wasn't even close. I think you were one of the more quote unquote pessimistic people out there, and you were at 8 wins. So, I mean, even you ended up being an optimist. I think what surprised me most is just what I really took for granted was, Craig, we've been out there since this spring and fall listening to Aranda, and he talked about since this spring. He was like, hey, it almost felt like no matter the question a reporter asked him, he would kind of end up veering off towards leadership, culture, toughness, weathering the storm. Those were all the kind of analogies we heard him use since the spring. And I think what the mistake I made was that assuming that just because Aranda had kind of identified that as a problem, that it would be fixed. And I think that what we saw is just they were never really able to come up with an answer to that issue. And so that's why I'm very eager to watch this offseason as to what changes do they make on the roster. I think you're going to see a good amount of turnover on the roster itself. Adding guys from the portal, adding new recruits for their, this is only Aranda's second full recruiting class that's about to come in. And then potentially some changes on the coaching staff, because it's pretty rare for any team to go through an off season without at least a change or two from assistants. And especially after a 6-6 disappointing season, I imagine we'll see at least a change or two. So I think it was that lack of ability to kind of find that it factor that surprised me the most. But perhaps it shouldn't have, after basically all of those guys who generated that it factor last year left the team.
Travis Roeder, Sikkim365.com, with his college football analyst. I want to try to position this question fairly. They have not had what you would consider an elite quarterback. Charlie Brewer's second year was pretty good. Third year was pretty good, but not elite. And then we know what 2020 was a disaster. Bohannon was the perfect bus driver and was the leader without question in that for that team. They've now lost Zeno, Gary Bohannon, and Kyron Drones. And we don't know what the future is, and Austin Novosad should sign sometime here in the next 2 or 3 weeks. Is that a sign of quarterbacks who are confused with what Baylor's running with Grimes and Bell? What does all this mean, in your opinion, or is this just college football today?
Well, I think it's the context there. It is college football today. I think it's very, very difficult for staff to keep a consistent kind of, hey, we're going to take a quarterback every year. Maybe we'll lose one every few years, but we're always going to have at least 4 scholarship quarterbacks on the roster. That's becoming more and more difficult. And then I think with Baylor's situation specifically, I mean, you think about going from Rule and Jeff Nixon's system in 2019 to the Larry Fedora, Jorge Munoz non-system of 2020, and then, changing things over with Bell and Grimes, and kind of what I talked about earlier in the sense of, I really feel like they kind of viewed Gary as almost like a stopgap, in the sense that he was absolutely what was best for that 2021 team, but was not the vision for the kind of quarterback they wanted to use for the system in the future. So I think it's been a bit of a mix up there. But I think it's like you said, Smoak, it's just really hard to keep a full room these days, because the grass is always greener. It's really easy for somebody to be in your ear in the sense of, hey, did you see that there's a totally open job at X, Y, and Z school? And that's the thing about these guys. These are all competitors. These are all guys who were probably the best player on their high school team, and they believe in their ability to go compete and win anywhere they go. So I think that's the tough aspect of it, but I don't really think it says too much about Bell and Grimes at this point, because the situation that they walked into coming off of the Larry Fedora situation with COVID and everything like that. I mean, they elected not to take a quarterback last year, in large part to land Austin Novosad. So I think, he's really their first QB recruit. And so I think what he ends up doing over the coming years is going to tell a lot about what they want from the quarterback position.
All right, Travis, I'm going to give you the credit card, and you're going to go to the transfer portal store.
Oh, man.
And you have to prioritize what you buy at the transfer portal store.
And unlike the real transfer portal, everything's in stock at this transfer portal store.
Yeah. So if everything is in stock, what are you going for, down the list?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think part of it depends on, does Kyron end up leaving? I think, like I said, you can't enter a season with 2 scholarship quarterbacks and one of them being a true freshman. That's really an untenable position. I say you can't, and then maybe it'll happen. So we'll see. But I think that if Kyron ends up leaving, they got to take somebody. After that, I think it'll be really interesting to see how many guys does Baylor end up losing. I think they're in a position where, as fans, we should. We've kind of taken pride in over the past years in the fact that Baylor has had barely anybody leave. I think it says a lot about Baylor as a university that a lot of these kids want to end up sticking around. But there's definitely some dead weight on this roster. And I think they could settle to lose, a solid 7, 8, 9, 10 guys. And I think they're going to need to, because if they're going to want to be able to add more than 1 or 2 players, and we saw that this past season where they were only able to add 2 players in the transfer portal, and that was mostly just because of scholarship numbers. I mean, you only have 85 scholarships. And so I think if they're going to be able to add more than 1 or 2, they got to lose some guys. But more directly to your question, a lot depends on whether TJ Franklin and Gabe Hall come back on the defensive line. I think if you get both of those guys back, it makes the defensive lineman addition much less of a necessity. I still think they'll be looking at that spot, but it makes it less of like oh my goodness, you absolutely must take 1 or 2 guys there, because they're graduating like 6 of their top 7 guys. It's crazy. So after that, though, one of the positions I have my eyes on is the defensive backfield. And I don't really care about them adding the most athletic stud who's going to step in and be a first-team all-conference guy. But one thing that's really disappointed me when I watched Baylor this year is I feel like they just don't really have a feisty enforcer on the back end. They don't have a Chris Miller who's going to fly downhill and pop you in the mouth and play aggressive. And so I think a lot of times what we've seen is these kids from like a group of 5 schools who may not have the full-on NFL athleticism. Baylor has plenty of NFL caliber athlete defensive backs on the team right now, but they're not playing up to snuff. And so I think I'd like to see them take somebody who maybe has a little bit of Taylor Young in him, where he doesn't necessarily have all the measurables, but he plays like a dog. So I think kind of on both sides of the ball, and I think that kind of goes for wide receiver as well. Baylor's had a bunch of guys who are 6'2" and run in the 4.4s, but they could use a Drew Estrada. I mean, they could use somebody who's just productive and knows how to play the position. So skill athletes on both sides of the ball. I think if they can take somebody who's productive, improven, and plays with an attitude, that'll go a long way.
Travis, as good as Shapen was against Oklahoma State in the championship game, and there were times this year he was really good, and then there were times when it was not good. Sometimes his fault, sometimes not. You hear about what Max Duggan was a couple of years ago. Different style. Duggan's a runner. He's physical. He's got a really nice arm. Shapen has his
Charlie
traits.
Burr with an arm.
Yes, exactly. He's fearless. And you wish maybe Blake on a few occasions this year would have been, but he wasn't. Can you see him developing? What do you see as his upside in Blake Shapen?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I was thinking about it today as I kind of rewatched the Texas game more closely and rewatched these last few weeks. I think it's important to parse out what Shapen is really good at versus what he's been poor at. And I think it's pretty clear at this point that, he's likely not an NFL quarterback. And, I hope that doesn't hurt anybody's feelings, but that's just the case. I think his upside is as a very good college quarterback who he needs to be able to see guys open. And what I mean by that is it's really easy to throw to Tyquan Thornton when he's got 2 yards of separation on somebody. And Blake is a guy who he can recognize that, pull the trigger, be accurate, be on time. And so when everything is flowing very naturally, Blake looks great. And I think what I saw over this past month is that, as Baylor closed out the year against their 3 best opponents, Kansas State, TCU, Texas, those are 3 very, very, very good football teams. I think their wide receivers and skill position, as we saw, Monterey Baldwin was playing really banged up. I don't think he would have been playing if Baylor had more depth at the receiver position. I think he was gutting it out just because he knew the team absolutely needed him. Gavin Holmes was hurt. Hal Presley's still developing. I think they really struggled with the fact that just receivers really struggled to get open. And I absolutely think that Blake could have played better. Obviously, he missed plenty of throws over the past month. But what my guess is what the staff is thinking going into next year is if we can just get some better receiver play and make it to where not everything is on Blake to make perfect throws every time, but just allow him to get in more rhythm with receivers getting open more often. I think they're betting that he's going to be the best guy to helm the offense going forward. Because I think, we saw, Kansas State has that cornerback number 23, Julius Brent, who's about to be an NFL player, and he just destroyed Baylor's wide receivers on the line of scrimmage all game. And I think we saw a lot of that against Texas too, where guys were just pressing up on him and owning him. And that's why most of the work they were doing was with Monterey Baldwin coming out of the slot where he could play with some space between him and the defensive backs. So anyway, I think the focus is going to be on getting Blake some better weapons, developing the guys they already have, and then hoping that with better weapons, he should be able to just be more consistent and play within a flow as opposed to feeling like he has to do everything and put everything on him in the passing game.
There's a lot of staffs that still have to be filled out because only really head coaches being hired at this point. But how much are you eyeing this Baylor staff and how much potential movement there could be there as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. One of the things I've been saying on the 365 boards for the past year is, I think Baylor really needs to expect Grimes to be leaving at some point, and Baylor fans should be hoping that he leaves because it probably means that the offense is awesome and he's going to get a head coach job. That's just something I've been saying for a while. I think he's kind of destined to be a head coach. I don't know if the 6-6 record is hurting things there and if it's going to be another year. Selfishly, I think it would be really good for Baylor to keep the offensive coordinator. But if he were to take a head coach job somewhere, that would obviously affect things with usually, coordinators when they become head coach, they end up bringing along several of their assistants. So that would affect things. I think defensively, I expect some movement there just purely because I think when you look at the stats, and I did this past week, obviously this isn't Dave Aranda's defense. This is Ron Roberts' defense. But really, if you look at Aranda's defenses over the past decade, this was the worst performance by the numbers since he was at Hawaii back in 2011. It was not up to par. And really, with guys like Apu Aika and Dylan Doyle up front and the talent they had on that defensive line, I think it was a big underperformance. And I think they're probably going to be looking at how can we get a better defensive back play? How can we just make this unit gel more as a whole? So, I don't really ever like to publicly call for anybody's jobs or anything like that. But like I said, it's very rare that you look at a staff in December and then look at them again in February and they're the exact same. And given how Baylor struggled in some certain areas this year, I'd be very surprised if it looked the exact same. So very anxious to see what happens on that front.
Hey, Travis, thanks for your time. We appreciate it. Travis Roeder, Sikkim365.com, college football analyst on the Kyron Drones decision. Also moving forward with that, plus a lot. As Craig mentioned, Paul, you guys mentioned, go shopping. What would you do? What would you have? Kyron Drones, man, I tell you what, he looks the part. Travis said he maybe not as much of a runner as most people think. He looks the part. Love the kid. His dad's a coach at Shadow Creek, won a state championship. But I would put my toes in the water and see if there's anything that bites. And if not, then maybe he still has the opportunity. You would think that they'd want him back in that quarterback room. And if he finds something that allows him to have a chance to play even more, then good luck to him.
Yeah, I mean, it's with the NIL situation. If some school's willing to give you, $100,000 to come play there, then hey, keep on keeping on, man. And there's probably somebody that will because they see the size and they see what they, desire in a quarterback, and he fits the bill, and they want to grab him. And that's the great thing is he can go in there, get offers and whatnot. And then if it doesn't work out, or maybe Baylor says, you know what, we'll match that, or, whatever the case may be. But he's got to make the best decision for himself ultimately. And I think he stuck around. He stuck around this past year, and he played when he got opportunities, but there's just not a lot of opportunity there. And no matter how bad it got with Blake at times, they were just clearly not going to go thrust Kyron into that situation. But they do have some big questions to answer. I mean, they do. And the way this team lined up, where you had so much returning talent in some spots, but then not so much in others, and now that talent's probably mostly gone. Like, you got to find a balance somewhere. You can't be all in or all out.
Massage the roster, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you got to even it out a little bit to where it's like every other year you're not like, this side's completely wiped out and this side's good, and then this side's completely wiped out the next year, and that's what it's kind of been these last couple years, or at least this past year. So they need to massage the roster. I do think there are probably some players who are dead weight, and that's the benefit now of the transfer portal with schools, is they can basically let guys know in a much nicer way than in the old days where they just cut you, basically. Now they can be like, hey, maybe you should go on the transfer portal. Like, Sam Houston's more your speed, or, just somewhere else is probably more your speed. So there's ways to do that now that are on the up and up, and I think some of that does need to be done because you just don't. They have had very little attrition, and when you're a 6-6 team, if you had hit on all those recruits you've had the last couple of classes, and you're probably not 6-6. You know what I mean? So they definitely had some misses, and every class does. Even the Alabamas have misses, and at this stage, you probably need to weed some of those guys out. But yeah, I mean, quarterback depth is suddenly a huge concern. No way with Shapen's history do you go in there with just Austin Novosad next year. Is it Sad or Sod? You always
Novosad.
Yeah, I just want to make sure on that. But yeah, there's a lot on the to-do list for Dave Aranda, and yet we don't even know who the, concrete staff will be for right now, because we need all of these coaching carousel hires to then go hire their staffs. And if you look around, Jeff Grimes, there's Auburn fans that want him to, join up with Hugh Freeze, which I don't think that that doesn't make any sense. But that's the kind of, there's going to be OC jobs that need filling, and there's also others on that staff outside of him, and Eric Mateos, any number of guys that could end up getting poached. So a lot of questions to answer.
Look, you never know when a linebackers coach is going to get a DC opportunity and things like that all over the country. By the way, Kyron Jones, I asked Grayson Grunhaver this earlier, and then we got a super chat we got to get to before the break. The other offers that Kyron Jones had were Auburn, Arkansas, Michigan State, Ole Miss, Pitt, and TCU. Of those, Auburn and TCU have different head coaches now than when he was offered, but Arkansas, Michigan State, Ole Miss, and Pitt still have the same coaches, so I'm sure he'll maybe kick the tires on some of those, and Michigan State for sure could.
Pitt is a bit different, though, now. They're not the same offense at all.
Mark Whipple's gone.
He don't want to go play at Pitt, I don't think, at this point, all due respect, but just that offense I don't think would be up his alley.
Yeah, Jackson Dart's still at Ole Miss for a little while, so you think that takes that out, but, Michigan State and Arkansas, though, if you look at them, like those from the old ones, and he'll get new offers.
Right.
But from the old ones where he could call up the coaches that recruited him and say, hey, are you still interested? Especially with Arkansas losing Malik Hornsby to the transfer portal yesterday. That could be pretty interesting.
I think he'll have some, maybe one or two of those options, coaching changes, and probably 8 to 10 more.
Yeah, I mean, is Kendall Brow still the OC next year? I mean, that's that's the thing too. Like, every other team's affected by it as well. Like, who is on your staff? As we know, there's going to be a class signing here in about 2 weeks, and less than 24 hours later, guys who help sign those classes are going to be announcing, by the way, I'm going to this school in the other conference. So, that's still to come, and that's going to happen a couple times, because it's going to happen in a couple weeks, and it's going to happen again in February. So there's a lot of pieces that are just very much up in the air right now. It's hard to get a total picture of kind of what to expect.
Yeah, and with Kendall Briles in particular, the Texas State opening, kind of, if he's going to make a head coach job, he's going to have to do that. He's going to have to take a job there. I don't think he's going to be able to be Power 5 right away because of the history there. But
I also think, though, you're right, but I think that Texas State needs to prove that it's going to be a worthwhile job and is going to have the resources and the support and the actual want to and all those types of things. I think that was something that Jake Spavital was battling, is not necessarily having a full cupboard in the areas that he needed to. So, yeah, I mean, that's on the surface, that seems like, that's a natural launching point, but I think that probably job needs to clean itself up a little bit.
All right, one note on Max Duggan, and then I'm going to respond to it with this that I just put in the chat room.
Yeah. Gorf Denro, which is Horn Frog backwards.
Okay.
$10 super chat. Max Duggan won the Johnny Unitas Golden Arm Award today. He might not win the Heisman, but he's definitely worthy of carrying the Johnny Unitas legacy forward. Great recognition for him and to you.
All right, let me explain to you what the Unitas Award is. And there are quarterback awards, and I know some of you are frustrated even with the Big 12 superlatives, and I get it. You fans, you love players, certain players, it's hard to split them. The Heisman Trophy, somebody mentioned earlier that if you guys think Max Duggan's as good as Caleb Williams, then you've been smoking some pretty good wacky weed. it's not always who is the best player. Now, the Heisman Trophy is supposed to be the best player in college football, but we also know that has not been the case many times before. It's usually been to the best player on the best team in college football or a quarterback. Unitas Award is given annually to the nation's top upperclassman quarterback in college football. Upperclassman. An argument was made about Caleb Williams. Upperclassman. Judged on accomplishments on the field, but also character, scholastic achievement, and leadership qualities. So it's not who is the best quarterback. That doesn't mean Max wasn't, but also other particular parts of it. Craig, Paul, we all voted a lot of different things, and there's a lot of time. Man, I take it very seriously to the point where I angst over it at times. It is not easy. I will grind on the Heisman Trophy vote throughout the weekend. It is something I take seriously, and I hope that everyone understands sometimes the vote doesn't mean that someone's just clueless or whatever.
Yeah, I like the idea that guy's accusing others of smoking weed for having the wrong opinion when he was clearly the wrong one. But that's just Twitter for you, and that's social media for you. It's just like so authoritative probably, and like, oh, you guys are idiots, and meanwhile you're totally wrong because you have the wrong idea in mind. But hey, smoke up, I guess. Enjoy. But nobody on this stage has ever said that Max Duggan is better than Caleb Williams. Never once. Not once. Not going to happen. Won't happen ever. I don't think that's even in the realm of possibility. So, yeah.
Yeah. If I was on, like, Let's Make a Deal and they opened the two doors and I could pick for my team Caleb Williams or Max Duggan, like, I'd be like, sorry, Max, I appreciate your heart, but, friggin' Superman's over here, so I've got to go with that.
Superman has a game left before the Heisman vote, and so does Max Duggan. Let's see what happens.
But, still, Max Duggan is deserving of getting there, and these are so complex. There's complex ways to look at it, you know. And I think part of the problem that happened with the Heisman Trophy vote in particular is nobody was looking at it in a complex scenario. They had, like, boiled it down to, okay, who's the quarterback on the number one team?
Right.
Well, I mean,
Danny Werfel, Gino Torretta, other names that have won, right?
Now, Danny Werfel, I mean, certainly I think
he was good,
but like Gino Torretta, he was the quarterback in that team, but was he the best player on that team?
Your dude from Florida State.
Oh, Winky? Yeah, no, Winky wasn't the best player on that team.
So, all right, we got to move on. John Machota is going to join us in a moment. There are so many awards. I know Paxton's furious about the Big 12 superlatives. I don't have a vote. When it comes to the postseason awards, we don't. We do win the preseason, and we have a lot of votes for many of the national awards. That's exactly right. All right, when we come back, John Machota will join us, and this is 365 Sports.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street in Waco, a hidden gem. And look, if you are wondering, like, hey, can they deliver to me? Are they on DoorDash? They, in fact, are. So you can go to DoorDash and get them there. What is their strength there at River Liquor and Wine? I would say it's pretty much everything, but if you are a fan of local Texas bourbons, they have those there. Absolutely just tons of great different ones, whether it's any kind of variety of Balcones, Devil's River, TX, Garrison Brothers, all there. Great craft beers. It's the wintertime now. You can get your winter beers. As a matter of fact, the last time I was there, I did get a couple of different winter brews to try. They've got great stuff all over the place. They make great recommendations. They have great customer service and a drive-through window that's faster than a NASCAR pit crew. It is just ridiculous what they do at Riverman Liquor and Wine. Check out their great promotions on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street behind the bank.
Hi, I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Colgan Ford. It's that time of year. It's football season, and BK Ford is a proud supporter of the best high school football teams in Texas, right here in Central Texas. BK Ford is proud to sell the #1 truck in Texas, the F-Series truck, led by our leading rusher, the F-150, 45 years in a row. Lock in your best price and rate today by custom ordering your new F-150 at BK Ford. Simple, easy, trusted. Experience better at Bird Colgan Ford.
Baylor Scott and White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, hand or wrist injuries, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trusts. Baylor Scott and White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Nitsche Group Insurance Agency. With the Nitsche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Nitsche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Nitsche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
In the market for a quality metal building? Since 1943, Pioneer Steel and Pipe has helped Central Texas residential and commercial customers with metal building design, panel options, building components, and trim options. Pioneer Steel and Pipe's residential line is energy efficient, offers low maintenance, reduces insurance payments, is impact resistant, and carries up to a 45-year limited warranty. In addition, they can also help you find a metal building contractor for your project. Pioneer Steel and Pipe with locations in Waco and Bryan and at pioneersboys.com.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Ben Erlinson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Ben Erlinson, 100 North 6th Street in Waco, 254-759-8533. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Howdy, Chet Garner here, professional guide, searching for bears in the wild. But not just any bears, oh no, a particular kind. With hundreds of thousands roaming freely in the wild, yet still hard to spot unless you know the signs. There they are, Baylor bears. If you're a bear enthusiast or even a bear yourself, join me and let's find some bears in the wild.
Join the expedition at baylor.edu/alumni.
Genco's Black Friday Cyber Monday Auto Loan Special is here. Apply for your auto loan online and receive a 0.15% loan discount. Plus, every auto loan gets 90 days with no payments. Then have a chance to win 90 more days with no payments. Black Friday Cyber Monday only at Genco. This special runs till December 2nd. Every online application gets an additional discount plus 90 days no payments. Only at Genco. Subject to credit approval, membership eligibility, and loan policies. For more information, go to gencofcu.org, member NCUA.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. It's time for our weekly segment with John Machota of The Athletic, brought to you by Pioneer Steel and Pipe, where customer service is their main focus, and best in metal, steel, and pipe for large or small projects, with 2 locations in Waco and Bryan. Family owned and operated since 1943.
By the way, following our segment with John, we have a couple of other stories to get to. One of them not good at all on former Nebraska interim head coach Mickey Joseph, who has been arrested. We'll have that, and also on Baylor men's basketball and their loss to Marquette. John Machota now joins us on 365 Sports. So every time Jerry's on, I guess his weekly or whatever he is with the radio station, the flagship, the Fan, it's a battery of Odell Beckham Jr. questions. Is that correct? How is he answering them, and does it make you think what they are going to do?
It's just funny because, we've asked several players, Mike McCarthy, Stephen Jones, everyone's talked about it. But Jerry, when you ask him, you can ask him as many questions as you want. There's no sense of him wanting you to change the subject. He's just fine talking about it, And so I don't know if that's just Jerry being open with the media like he normally is, or that's part of his recruiting pitch is that, hey, the more I talk about it, the more it'll be out there, the more he'll see it, and the better that is for us. But I mean, I just don't see how the Cowboys aren't the favorites to land him. I mean, I'm not saying that they're a lock or anything, but I just think it's 70-75% chance that if he plays football this year, it's going to be with the Dallas Cowboys. My biggest takeaway is from his most recent interview was just how much he emphasized that Odell has to help them this year. It doesn't sound like the Cowboys are interested if this is only for next year or down the road. They need him for this year, and that sounds like that'll have to be part of the deal. So when you mention things like that, that means that obviously the medicals are going to have to check out, that they're going to have to, he's going to have to meet with their trainers, and they're going to have to feel comfortable that he's going to be able to contribute this year. And so at this point, the Cowboys don't know that for sure.
Yeah. John, I would think that if the medicals are clear, then that might be one of the faster things that happens. But aren't they the last visit that he has scheduled?
They are. I saw that Von Miller on his podcast said the other day that, he doesn't think that Odell is going to leave the building after he visits Buffalo. So, we'll see. I just maintain the only thing that would prevent me or make me think that he wouldn't go to the Cowboys is just if another team offers him just a much better deal. And you can't fault the guy for that. I mean, he's coming off of that second knee injury to the same knee, ACL tear both times. And if you have a team that's going to offer you 3 years or let's say 2 years with something fully guaranteed, and other teams are just giving you kind of, the rest of this season, and then next year's deal is very incentive laden and there's no commitment after that. I mean, you got to take the best deal for you because you don't know if you're going to get another one from another team. So that's an X factor in this as well. I don't know how much the Cowboys are willing to commit to him beyond, next season, just because of the fact that they're not going to do anything that prevents them from re-signing CeeDee Lamb or Trayvon Diggs, and most importantly, Micah Parsons. Anything that would factor in them potentially hurting their chances there, they're not going to do.
So the Cowboys have gotten healthy, and they're getting the cavalry even more of them, and it's going to be intriguing on how they handle Tyron Smith. James Washington's coming back, so there's the wide receiver who was injured earlier that they got out of the Steelers. How are they going to handle the return once he's cleared of Tyron Smith?
I think what's going to happen is I think there's a good chance he comes back and starts practicing with the team next week, and then maybe bring him back the following week, and then he's, as close to all the way back for the Philadelphia game. And I think he steps right in at left tackle, his old starting spot. And I think Tyler Smith slides over to left guard, and it goes back to being pretty much what the plan was coming into the season before, Tyron got hurt. And that's, Tyron at left tackle, Tyler Smith at left guard, Biadasz at center, Zach Martin at right guard, Terrence Steele at right tackle. And they would love for that to be their starting offensive line for the rest of the season and into the playoffs. But that's the thing with Tyron Smith is just at this stage in his career, it's always been, it's one thing or the other. So there's got to be part of you, if you're the Cowboys, that, yeah, this is the plan right now, but we Connor McGovern, stay ready because you could be coming back in real soon. Jason Peters, stay ready because you could be part of this pretty quickly too. So I think the plan is that when Tyron comes back, he gets left tackle, his normal spot back, and then they go from there.
John, there was a lot of talk about Dak Prescott and his ineffectiveness when he was out injured, but you wrote about it the other day, and the Cowboys' offense has been number one in the league since he's been back. So maybe that quiets the Dak doubters a little bit.
Yeah, I don't think it will. I mean, it'll come down to what he does in the postseason. And frankly, when you look at the teams that should probably make the NFC playoffs, I mean, outside of Tom Brady, I mean, I think that you take Dak Prescott if it was, just a draft of taking the best quarterback. I mean, Jalen Hurts played great. Nothing against Jalen Hurts. I think he's in a great situation with the weapons around him in Philadelphia, their offensive game plan and all that. But I think, without question, Dak's more accomplished. I mean, that's what's missing from Dak's resume. It's the same thing that was missing from Romo's resume. It was that, going deep into the playoffs. And if he does that and takes care of business there, everything else takes care of itself. If it, it was like last year and they lose in the first round, those people are going to get, loud and critical again. But, I wrote today about just the interceptions, particularly the ones right before half. I mean, there's been those 3 of the last 4 games. And it was most costly against Green Bay. But it just was interesting that 3 of these last 4 games, he's had an interception within the last few minutes of the first half, all of them down the middle, all of them CeeDee Lamb, and in talking to him today, at his locker. Part of the reason that he's doing that is because, one, he trusts CeeDee Lamb on those type of routes. And then two is that you throw those type of passes because of what it opens up for the rest of your offense. You need to attack the middle of that field every once in a while. You can't just leave that where it's a spot where you just never throw there, because defenses can adjust to that. And so he's going to stay aggressive. And, obviously the Cowboys want him to be smart, but interceptions haven't been a big part, of his resume. So I don't think that they're overly concerned about it.
All right. Does it seem to me that he's feeling so much better that he's starting to maybe use his legs a little bit more than he did when he came back for obvious reasons?
Yeah, and I think he's using his legs more, but he just looks overall more comfortable these last few games. I think those first few he came back, there might have been pressing a little bit, and heck, there might have been a little bit of just hesitancy when, let's say, there's the pocket starts to collapse, because so often as a quarterback you can hit your hand on a player's helmet or on another player's hand as they're trying to knock the ball out of your hand, things like that. And I don't notice that as much out of him recently. It just seems like he's in a good groove and is getting back to that Dak Prescott we saw last year at the beginning of the season, where he was playing at an MVP type level. And so he's doing that with CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup, who I thought collectively played their best game together on Thursday. And then the potential of you adding Odell Beckham in the mix with the way those tight ends are playing and the way the running game's working. I mean, this has a chance for this offense to continue to be where it's at right now, where since he's been back, it's been, statistically the best offense in the NFL. I don't see why that should change as long as these key pieces stay healthy and they continue to, play together, especially over these next few weeks. I mean, they're certainly going to be the favorite in all these games leading up to that Eagles game.
John, what scares you the most about Indy on Sunday night? Would it be Jonathan Taylor and the run defense? I mean, they've done a pretty good job against Saquon Barkley and Dalvin Cook back-to-back, but you never know.
Yeah, I would say it would just be them overlooking the Colts. One of those things where they come into the game and some things go wrong early on. There's uncharacteristic turnovers. All of a sudden, let's say Zeke fumbles or Tony Pollard or, let's say Schultz has a, catch and then he fumbles. They're just uncharacteristic turnovers that we haven't really seen from this team. Stuff like that keeps the team into it, gives them kind of life when I think the Cowboys are going to be looking to start fast and kind of put them away early. And so that there isn't that hope going into the second half of like, hey, this game's still there. And, Matt Ryan's playing well and keeps them in a game that, they shouldn't be. But outside of that, your point, obviously a great one, Jonathan Taylor, this team's run defense has been, the two biggest concerns with this team. And this is not just this year, but in years past, is it's the run defense and the penalties. But I'll say this, over these next few teams that they're going to play, I think it's going to be like the Giants game. You can still commit 13 penalties against these teams and win those games. The problem is that you can't commit 13 penalties against the Eagles. You're not going to be able to do that against those teams in the playoffs. And the same thing with the run defense. You can let Jonathan Taylor go for $120, probably still win the game by, 10 points. But, you do that stuff in the playoffs, that could be the thing that sends you home early. All
right, buddy. Thanks for your time. John Machota, theathletic.com, and the Cowboys in the NFL. Appreciate him. Wednesdays around 5:30. Now, a couple of notes to get to. One, I just saw this. Iowa State defensive lineman M.J. Anderson has decided he will leave Iowa State and turn pro, enter the NFL draft. And then the story about former Nebraska interim head coach, and there was a lot of concern or debate among fan base. Does he stay? Matt Rule, keep him, whatever, recruiting. That decision, unfortunately, for Mickey Joseph is not going to be very difficult. He was arrested in Lincoln, Nebraska. The Lincoln police put out the note that he was arrested for domestic assault, strangulation, and stunning type of story for a man that could have been the next head football coach at Nebraska. Matt Rule's decision there, unfortunately, has now been made without it ever being made. And I would have thought, we know Matt Rule, Craig, Paul, we know him. He usually has his inner circle, those he's coached with, coached for, and players he's coached as players. That's kind of his inner circle. So I don't know what the Mickey Joseph decision would have been even prior to today's news, just to hear recently.
Yeah, but I mean, at the same time, he didn't know Joey McGuire. He didn't know Sean Bell. He didn't know, I think that it's easier than his inner circle. I think it's easier to say, why would you want the guy who was just up for the job to still be sticking around? I think that's more of a reason why you wouldn't want to have him than, your little exclusive staff. Because because I think Matt Rule's open-minded enough. I mean, sure, he likes his guys, but everybody does. So, if he thought that Mickey Joseph could help them, then I'm sure he would have, been open to, perhaps having him stick around. But I just didn't bank on that to begin with. And I'm not really a huge proponent of, like, the fan favorites sticking around because Twitter loves them, oh, he needs to be around. Like, does he though? Like, or maybe is it better for everybody to just kind of start over because you're starting over? So, I mean, if at worst he made the decision for them, most likely, you always want to wait for the whole story. But certainly those charges aren't great. 3rd-degree assault, strangulation. That's all bad. So not sure obviously what occurred, but what a weird little career path this last week has been for Mickey Joseph, and hopefully he gets his life back on track because that's awful.
One of the stories from earlier today was the Ren Baker story, the new AD at West Virginia. West Virginia has also made it official. Neil Brown is back for one more year. The Kyron Drone story in the transfer portal for Baylor in football. We have to get to this in the top 5 around the corner. I was sitting there last night, and I'm usually a pessimist when I see the start of a game. I am. That's the way I am with Baylor as someone who covers them but also knows them pretty well. I am still trying to wash out the feeling in my mouth or my head of what I saw against Marquette in Wisconsin last night.
Well, they don't play defense. They didn't play defense against Virginia in that game. They didn't play defense last night at all against Marquette. They've got the Zags here later in the week. On Friday. And they got to get some stuff fixed really fast before.
I don't know if that's fixable this fast.
Yeah, and maybe it's just attitude. Maybe, look, I wouldn't put it past Scott Drew to go back to the zone if he had to. If this team can't be an effective man-to-man team.
16 turnovers, Craig, in the first half that led to 20-something points, and Baylor forced 1 turnover. They didn't even get like an accidental turnover from Marquette. Shaka's got guys that run around like he did at Virginia Commonwealth, could never do at Texas. But, man, do they have some issues. Whether it's Flagler, the point guard, do they give Keontae the opportunity to dish it out, have Flagler and Cryer in the wings? Are they tough enough inside? I don't know.
I mean, I'm not the basketball guy by any stretch. That's not my wheelhouse. But, that was an awfully disappointing, historically bad loss. From all appearances, they don't have a true point guard. They don't have enough in terms of their scoring. And, they don't play defense. So outside of that, it's all great. I mean, they're a mess as of last night. And certainly those who, are on that beat will say they've probably seen cracks in the armor previously, like that game you're referring to. But I think that was shocking. I mean, if they lose to Shaka and Marquette, it's not like a shock, but the way they lost it was the shocking part. I mean, Marquette was unranked.
Non-competitive.
And it was, Baylor was a top 10 team. So that was shocking from that standpoint. But like the style in which it occurred was the most pick up your jaw off the floor type of feeling coming out of that game was, wow, they didn't get beat or upset. They got demolished and upset and look like they're not anywhere in the class of Marquette, which is a bit concerning. Yeah. And for all the reasons I mentioned and probably some others I'm not even including as well, but you need a point guard. You need some more on offense, and you need some defense. And I don't know how you go and correct all those things. I also don't know how you got into this year. This is kind of like with Dave Aranda. It just shows you how hard it is being a coach. But how do you not have a better sense of that? And maybe you did, and maybe it's just too late to do anything about it. Well, then that's miscalculating your roster. And that's, I know Scott Drew's a brilliant dude, and I'm not for 1 second going to pretend like I know more about basketball than him. But that would be my question as just a super outsider would be like, how did you get into the season and not have a real point guard and not have more of an idea of what you were going to be in certain areas? Because now you're stuck. Like now it is what it is. And given the huge expectations coming in, that's the most disappointing part.
They were down 22 to Virginia after a brutal start to the second half. They were down 30 or whatever to Marquette. Let's not forget, it was just North Carolina back in March where they trailed by 30 or whatever it was, came back to go into overtime, which was dramatic. But, man.
See, I think they can get by with Flagler as the point guard. But
you're
I
saying
think
get by, though. It's like it's not. It's the first month of the season.
The NIT?
No, they can win games with him at point guard if they have defense on the back end. Jalen Bridges was brought in to be a 3-and-D guy. He's not really either right now. And so he's got to be that guy. They need more out of Flo Thamba. And look, Flo Thamba is a notoriously slow starter. He's somebody who kind of shows up and has his big moments in the conference season. So they really he needs to accelerate that. And then they just got to get more on defense out of everybody, but especially in the low post.
I'll tell you what, I didn't like some of the body language, and I'm not one of those that overreacts to that. I didn't like the fact that there was a steal, a layup that was missed, and there was a dunk on a follow-up from Marquette that they had someone going back down just in case the kid missed the shot, and there was nobody there to do anything about it. I don't know. I trust what Scott Drew has done. We've seen him have to completely just change everything when players have gone down in the past because of what they normally do. But this team has Gonzaga facing them, who got drilled by UT coming up Friday, and that game in South Dakota. And, man, do you put your eyeballs on that one to see what happens. But, my goodness, last night was just a bad, atrocious, try to clean your mouth out with soap type of loss to Marquette. And we haven't seen many of those at all lately for Baylor men's basketball. When we come back, Paul Catalina's Top 5. PettyClinicLowT.com can help you become the high-performance man that you want to be, need to be, and used to be. As you get older, there's some things in your body that change. It's called father time. That's what happens. 1 out of every 3 men have symptomatic issues of low testosterone, and Dr. Petty can try to help find out if that is why you don't sleep as well. You don't have the same energy. You don't have the same focus, and perhaps your sex drive is not what it used to be. Here's how you find that out. If any of those symptoms, and 1 out of every 3 men have one of those symptoms or all of them. PettyClinicLowT.com on the website. There's an email. There's a phone number. Contact them. Tell them that I sent you. Tell them Smokey sent you. They will then set you up to get your blood work. They will get the lab results. Dr. Petty will look at them, and if your testosterone level is too low, he can put you in a program to increase your testosterone and get you out of the funk or whatever it might be with whatever symptoms you might have. PettyClinicLowT.com.
This month, Alan Samuelson Waco is having the Black Friday sales event. You can save big on the new 2022 Ram 1500 Crew Cab with total values up to $4,250 with 2.9% for 72 months. That's right, plus an extra $500 bonus cash to first responders and no payments until January 2023. Shop an award-winning dealership with award-winning product. Alan Samuelson Waco, the place to shop Ram trucks.
Come by, let's be friends.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible and rewarding challenge. Hi, this is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like our free First mobile app, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. That's the First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year. Whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street behind the bank.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
After my first car accident, I feared the biggest damage would be to my wallet. I expected a mountain of bills and a long, drawn-out process. But my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent was there when I needed her and helped me get back on my feet and in my car in no time. Instead of a hassle, I got reassurance and a quick recovery.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
This is Paul Catalina's Top 5 at 5:55.
Top 5 Stanford candidates. I feel like I have to do these pretty fast because these things come at you fast. So you never know. I mean, by this weekend, there's going to be several of these jobs already filled. But number 5, Mike Bloomgren, head coach at Rice. They're 5-7, but Stanford's fortunes under David Shaw took a hit when Mike Bloomgren left to go to Rice. He was our offensive coordinator that was kind of leading all that. People, obviously Rice and Stanford are, similar academically, and that you have to have, smart guys to be there for sure, and guys with high GPAs. So this is one that's kind of floated out there, even though, he hasn't really done much at Rice. They're knocking on the door. They could get in a bowl game this year because of the APY, right?
Well, yeah, because of the AP, but they didn't earn it. No, they're the top of the. What is that you just referred
to?
APY. Yeah, that they're at top of that, so they would be like the first option, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, so they could, but I don't think this is probably where they're gonna go. But if he does get fired, he might wind up being the offensive coordinator if he's any connection to the new coach.
I mean, that's the thing is, he makes sense. He has history, but Rice desperately doesn't. I mean, I'll go off Taylor McCarr. Taylor McCarr doesn't want him there anymore.
Yeah.
Like, they're done. Like, the people who support Rice and are, like, fans of Rice, they seem to be pretty fed up and, like, want a change. But because he's, like, hovering as, like, a bowl-ish type team, it's giving him some leeway. If you remember when we had Taylor on, I was like, hey, man, it was, like, 3 weeks to go in the season. It's like, oh, man, they could make a bowl game. And he's like, yeah. Like, it's like that feeling. So, I mean, if he's bringing that kind of lack of momentum, then stay the heck away, Stanford. But if he can, like, maybe just get out of Houston and get some of the mojo back, then yeah, he obviously makes sense for the reasons he mentioned.
Yeah. Number 4, Troy Taylor at the FCS level at Sacramento State, doing a great job. He's a Cal grad, though, and there's a lot of people who think that, a lot of Stanford people wouldn't care, but he's winning at that level, and, this is probably the dark horse candidate there, or the one that's the furthest outside the box, but he's winning, and he's going to get a Power 5 job here soon. He's going to be the next guy, Chris Kleiman or Kalen DeBoer or somebody like that. Or Kalen DeBoer was at Fresno State, but, someone like that who kind of makes that jump. Lance Leipold that went to Buffalo, something like that. But Troy Taylor, Sacramento State, don't know as much about him, but everywhere I look, people seem to bring him up, and he's a Cal guy, Northern California guy through and through, so he could certainly be a possibility.
Yeah, the term I was trying to think of with Rice, APR, is what allows you to get into a bowl game. Rice has one of the, if not the highest APR, so with 5 wins, they can go to a bowl. That's what I was trying to think of. Yeah, I don't know much about Troy Taylor. I've heard a bit here and there about Sacramento State and their successes, and you outlined some reasons why he's got some connections. So, sure, yeah, I don't know much about him, though. Would have to dig a little bit more.
Yeah. Number 3, Michigan offensive coordinator Sharon Moore. This is kind of in the idea of let's get back to Harbaugh. Let's get back to Harbaugh's system. This is a guy who runs Harbaugh's system. And again, Michigan assistants are going to be well sought after pretty much every year now, as long as they keep winning. Look, Josh Gaddis just, he's gotten big money as an offensive coordinator. All these different guys have moved around. But Sharon Moore, certainly one that bears considering because, again, to get back to where they were under Harbaugh, which is consistently winning 8, 9, 10 games and finishing in the top 15, several top 10 finishes, and then on into David Shaw, they maybe want that kind of attitude back. But David Shaw, also a Harbaugh disciple.
Yeah, maybe they want to go a different direction. I think that's the biggest question is, what does Stanford really want to do? I mean, who do they want to be, and what is the trajectory of the program? Is this a Cal situation where you don't even know if they really care that much about football in the long run? Like, what is life in the new Pac-12 like? But, yeah, I mean, if everything's equal, just like it always kind of has been, certainly he would provide some insight based on being a branch of the Harbaugh tree and kind of knowing how the ins and outs of that work. And that would be to his benefit, I would imagine. So certainly, like you said, Michigan's staff is going to start getting picked off left and right. And he's one of the names that you hear quite a bit about guys that could, potentially make a jump up. So sure. Yeah, there's enough familiarity there to give him a good enough idea, and obviously enough on his resume to make him an intriguing candidate for Stanford to look at.
Yeah. Number 2, Dave Clawson from Wake Forest runs they have a fun offense. They have a fun style. This would be a change. Certainly, don't know, if he's got a really good gig at Wake Forest. I mean, he can be there forever and nobody's going to mess with him because he's taken the program to new heights. But if he is looking for something different, Stanford's a really good fit for him for his style. Look, Wake Forest is a good school. All these different things. Now, your Stanford's a different level of good school, but I do think that the style of football that he brings from Wake Forest would be kind of fun and maybe reinvigorate the fan bases. They might have kind of gotten tired of 3 yards in a cloud of dust, which is what they've been for a little bit here.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big move going from North Carolina all the way across the country, which is not, impeding him from being able to do that. But he's closing in on nearly a decade at Wake Forest at this point, which I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing as far as he's concerned with that job. But he's pretty settled in at this point, and they're, having some success here and there. So that'd be kind of surprising to see him. I just think that the Pac-12 uncertainty is what really, especially Stanford and Cal, that's really – what you've got in Wake Forest right now. What do you have in Stanford, I think is the big question. So, yeah, I would be surprised to see him, lift up roots and roots that have been growing now for a while, especially with them having some successes, like I said, this year. But who knows?
He is from Massachusetts. He was born in New York. This is where he's coached, Paul. Georgia, Buffalo, Lehigh, Villanova, Fordham, Richmond, Tennessee. That's as far west as he's been. Bowling Green, maybe, and then Wake Forest. So he seems to be entrenched over there. But, again, a guy that's at a private school and someone that has had success.
Hey, man, if you're, you're nearing retirement age and you say, what the hey, I'm going to go live in the Bay Area and close up. I mean, maybe that's in his head, but that would be a big departure from what he's been known for.
Number 1, Bronco Mendenhall was at BYU, which has very special circumstances when it comes to, their roster and the mission and all the mission trips that guys go on and obviously, the religious affiliation there. Stanford, no religious affiliation, but it's a special circumstance at school in that everybody that you recruit essentially has to be a 4.0 kid. Was at Virginia, another good high academic school, seems to want to get back into coaching. I think Stanford is a really good fit for him, if he wants to do that because he can navigate both those things. But again, he stepped away voluntarily a couple years ago. So does he really want to get back in, and does he want to get back in at Stanford, which has a lot of challenges? The big thing going around Stanford right now is Stanford hates fun. They're coming out on students for a lot of things. So all of those things he's going to have to navigate because Stanford's going to have to hire somebody, again, who's going to make it fun to be, at the football games. And right now, they suspended the tree, all these different things have happened at Stanford that they need to certainly lighten up a little bit.
I think he's dealt with unique circumstances, but I do think that, the religious part of being at BYU versus, the academic standard is a bit of a different type of outside thing. But to say that he's, had to battle things that maybe others at other schools haven't had to battle, yeah, certainly. I think just the fact that he's been out west makes people believe that, I know Colorado's been thrown around with him. So, yeah, if he's in it to win it as a coach and full bore and wanting to be out west, then Stanford will make a sense from that standpoint. I just think for all these guys on the list, and I do think there are probably some that are probably not very much of a chance, but again, I need to know what the heck Stanford wants to be. Like, you're talking about, it's the no fun place. The future of the conference is in doubt. The academic standards are exceptionally high. Like, who wants that job? Mm-hmm. Who wants to go deal with all of that right now? That's what I'm curious. And I don't know that a Bronco Mendenhall, when you've got other options like a Colorado, perhaps, for example, if that's really what you want to go and, start pouring concrete on to lay the foundation. Like, somebody will, obviously. I mean, it's not a terrible job by any means, but there's just a lot right now. The no fun part, the academic standards, just a lot that you have to deal with there that you're not having to deal with any of those things in some other places. Although Colorado, of course, the Pac-12 future is still a question mark for them too. But this is going to be a really interesting job because it's so unique. It's very unique and in its own kind of class with what it's dealing with, as opposed to basically all of the others out there right now. Be interesting if it's any of these guys or somebody we're not thinking of. But that's one to definitely just be aware and be mindful of kind of how this unfolds on the Stanford end of things.
Man, I tell you what, that used to be, and I don't know, again, all the things you guys were saying, that's a hell of a job. But now with what's going on with the Pac-12.
Do you know who Adam Rittenberg's thrown out there?
No.
Who did I throw out there a couple days ago?
I don't know
who did I say would be the perfect fit at Stanford?
Dave Aranda.
Dave Aranda. Yeah, and I just saw Adam Rittenberg throw Dave Aranda out there in the last day or two. I think I said that a couple days ago, and I was just saying that as like he just makes sense. I don't think expectations are as high there. It's really just about football and academics, and from that standpoint, I think he would probably enjoy that more than having to like battle toe-to-toe with Texas and TCU and Oklahoma and all these. Like, you still have to battle with the others as well, but again, the Pac-12 uncertainty makes it different and all of that. But yeah, I'm not putting any stock in that, but it was funny to see his name brought up at after thinking about that a couple of days ago. So We'll see. It'll be interesting, like I said.
We need to all, Paxton, take a deep breath. He's very upset about the Big 12 Superlative Awards. Remember, these are coaches' votes. They know a hell of a lot more than we do. They see the film. Statistics for Ford were fantastic. I would not have been surprised if he'd been named the Defensive Player of the Year. But linebacker stats compared to a defensive end type stats are going to be different. That doesn't excuse your anger. Doesn't mean you can't be angry or passionate. We love you. And wet blanket, Oklahoma State fan trying to calm down a UT fan. We have hope in this world.
You know what I'll tell you? Jalen Ford not getting that award will have no effect on his career.
On Jalen Ford, or it only might make him even more determined, even though you don't need that. Gregory Craig, do you divulge your votes after winners are announced? I'll do that. I do with the Heisman, and I do with any other votes, and Paul has some. Craig, we all have some.
I don't.
You don't have one?
I don't have anything.
Trying to get you involved in the Bolitnikoff Award for sure. So all of you, thank you. Thank you all
I'll tell you
very
my picks,
much.
though, at some point.
Yeah, we would want that, absolutely. Paxton, you don't have to apologize for your frustration. It's part of being a great fan. For Garrett Ross, Jack McKenzie, Emery Winter, Jacob Wilson, thank you to our great sponsors. We're on at 10:30 tonight, the CW channel with Sports Tonight. We appreciate them. Back again tomorrow at 3. For Paul and Craig, I'm David. This is 365 Sports, and have a great night. Good night.